to audio.
Okay, so we should have my voice. Sean, you should be able to hear me now. Apologies if that wasn't happening before. You'll be able to hear Jeremy momentarily. Please hold.
Holding for Hux.
Present.
Should I not mention that one? Okay, you should be able to hear Jeremy now as well. Thank you everyone for being patient. Apologies to everyone.
You just didn't flick that one button, so.
Well, I blame OBS. I have this all freaking figured. I just assume it's going to work, and then it just forgets about some of the things. So, anyway, apologies. All you missed was the preamble. Find that on the podcast. We're about to jump in. I will remind everyone that we do a film club every month. Jeremy sounds good, not me. I don't sound
Hell yeah.
Oh man. Checking again. He's like, yeah, finally. I'm following up on him. Oh, I see what I did.
Still need that new mic though.
I see what I did.
Oh, the other switch you flicked down instead of up.
That should work. How about now? Are you guys hearing me now? That should be better. I'm gonna cut this out of the main show. So, again, the film club. We do a film club every month. Everyone who's listening to the show, I presume, knows that by now. What they might not know is that the last month's film club, or August's film club, Swingers, is available publicly in the feed. That I think dropped today, if I'm not mistaken. So, and today being the 31st of August, the year of our Lord 2022. So, I think it's a really good one. Swingers is a great movie. We really enjoyed watching it. So, and we really enjoyed breaking it down. A friend of mine, a screenwriter friend of mine, came on the show, joined us. Their favorite movie of all time. So, if you're looking for someone who's really behind it, that's where you're going to find it. Again, that's on the film club on our Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Babblecast. We are doing, Jeremy, what movie are we doing this month for the next one? Do you remember?
We are doing no, The Rock.
The Rock, right? Yes. Actually,
Nailed it.
stoked about The Rock because it's a movie I haven't seen since I was a kid.
Michael Bay, super underrated.
Certainly is partially. I mean, is he
That
super
era.
underrated? I mean, at that era, I suppose.
That era, Bad Boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Bad
I mean,
Boys
he's making
2.
good movies, and he blew up
Rock.
for Transformers, is what you're saying. And then he kind of like flew too close to the sun, and then he's kind of like burned out since then. Was that would you say that's your? Would you say that's fair?
Is that a Linkin Park lyric?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Jeremy, it's so funny you shared that.
Close to the sun.
Is that no? It's
He
actually
burned
that's just Greek mythology, actually.
Mm.
Although I do find that I confuse Linkin Park and the Greeks often. Anyway, let's get into this. There's lots of bad news to talk about, so please strap in. Please be excited. I don't think I'll ever, Jeremy, get over the use of "Please be excited," which of course I think everyone knows is a reference to Sony.
A video
telling
game
people
reference.
it's a video game reference to a Sony E3 of yesteryear. From like, it's got to be over 10 years old now. But it's still, I get a lot of legwork out of that, for sure. Anyway, let's talk about Warner Brothers. So last time we recorded, we talked about how they were going into their investors call. There's going to be some news that's going to come out of that. And we then went off for 3 weeks and haven't talked about any of that stuff. So we have lots to unpack. And what's nice about this is actually, if I can frame the fact that we haven't covered it immediately within a nice like silver lining, which is that we have like a lot of time to think about what happened, process it, and really kind of like mull it over before we come to a conclusion on whether or not it was good or bad.
Think about what, sorry?
Well, everything that Warner Brothers has done since their meeting, right? And so I guess I don't want to like go.
I was just thinking about all the time that's surpassed since we've had a Superman movie. I was thinking about that amount of time.
That's what
When
you
you were saying that, I was
right.
like, I was looking like Homelander in the theater, and I was thinking about all the time that has passed and how far back 2013 is. So yeah,
So
sorry,
do you say,
I've been that close since then. But yes,
well, we've
since the
probably been
investors
closer.
group
We've been,
call.
since before that. Yeah, since the investors call, which is a much shorter amount of time. But I'm not going to go through each item individually. I will say I will just kind of frame it as being like there's a lot of bad news, like I said at the top here.
Well, yeah, we talked about it a long time ago. The first initial bit of bad news was the cancellation of Batgirl.
Yes,
That is
huge
the first major
domino.
decision
Sure.
and domino by the new regime at Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD.
Is it the first? I feel like there was other decisions we were hearing about, but this is like the one that would,
I'm sure there was, but
right.
I'm talking like the major, like this is like a catalyst for a lot of different perspectives and opinions on this.
Right.
So you have, and there's a whole side, right? Where it's like, how could you do this? Which is attached to the human element, the people involved, the creatives be involved, just the story, the fans of the character itself. What do you mean this movie's coming out? You already made it,
Right.
right? So that's a
The story of the
major
grave.
part.
By the way, the funeral screenings that they're showing at
Mm.
the Warner Brothers lot,
Right.
it feels like just a little bit of like they're just rubbing it in at that point. The rumor was that they were literally destroying copies of the movie. Like they're
Yeah, the directors have been
Yeah.
pretty vocal. I mean, even when it happened, they shared an email from Kevin Feige
yeah.
who just quickly emailed them saying they're thinking of them, and kind of spun it in a funny way where it was because of the wedding that one of them got married, but also
Right.
mentioning, going as far as to mention the cancellation of Batgirl, because obviously they did Miss Marvel, right?
I say yeah. Yeah.
Feige, over at Disney
Exactly.
Plus.
I say just never let them work for Warner Brothers again. Be like, don't worry. It's never going to happen to you if you come to Disney. Of course, that's also a lie to some degree. It's not like Disney. The funny thing about all this is, of course, because this show seems to like swing its pendulum between, giving ire to either one mega corporation or another, right? Disney Plus acquires Fox, ruins the film industry to some degree, starts that process, right? Then now we have this whole other merger with Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD, as we call it for short.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the trades refer to it as being like the next, like the second horseman of the apocalypse, really. I guess maybe you can include the Netflix stuff, like all the about how they were completely imploding under their own weight. All these things, we're just kind of turning our attention from one negative story about how about Hollywood essentially is being gutted from the inside by a series of bad decisions, or at least decisions motivated purely out of profit. I think, and that's really what it comes down to. I think at the end of the day, is that
it's those two avenues.
They really
the
took
human element, and then the profit element.
It's show business, and it's just this is all
Not
business.
So friends, which is another quote from Zaslav himself.
Right. Which is also, by the way, a quote from Jerry Maguire.
Right. But yeah, so that's why this is the first major domino, because it's a huge decision that has a lot of backlash, and we can easily see that with the creatives involved, especially Leslie Grace. I mean, a huge starring role in a world where nailing a superhero movie is
to change your career.
It's the tip of the iceberg at this point. Look at Shang-Chi, right, with Simu Liu, right?
Yeah, literally went from being a guy on a Canadian sitcom to being one of the biggest Asian Hollywood actors maybe ever. It's crazy. Yeah.
So, and there's rumors, but it could all be just like spin and drama, like that they offered her to come back, at some point, and she turned it down.
Well,
Like,
they're trying to. I heard, the rumor was that Warner Brothers was doing its best to kind of like repair the
amends,
relationship with
yeah,
Leslie Grace,
yeah.
but like, good luck with that, is my
Hmm.
opinion. It's like, why would anyone? Here's the thing, right? And what a lot of folks on film Twitter and other film podcasts have mentioned, which is that it's like it's one thing to have the conversation around the business side, and there might be some solid decisions being made there from that perspective, right? But when you consider the fact that you need human beings to make movies, and you need creatives who are invested, you have good relationships with, to make quality products, that really what they're doing is undoing 100 years of goodwill that Warner Brothers has built up, with creatives, right? Why would anyone trust Warner Brothers to keep its word on anything at this point, right? We're going to start up these projects, and it's like, sure, projects get canceled all the time, but like now we're talking about projects that were done, literally done. In some cases, have been, in the case of like American Pickle, which I think is a funny one because it's a funny name for a movie. A movie I've actually seen, a Seth Rogen picture from Disney, HBO Max, just pulled from the service because they don't want to pay people residuals. It feels like a cartoonishly evil decision to make. Like, to this point where it's like, really? That's the direction you guys want to go? You're just going to work as hard as you possibly can to piss off every creative you can, to pinch pennies, essentially. And sure, it might pull you out of a nosedive right now. Possibly. I'm not even convinced that it will, because, of course, there's that tweet, Jeremy, that you sent me, which was very funny, which is like, have you ever needed $3 billion so bad that you lose another $2 billion? Because on the news of this stuff that came out of their investors call, they lost another $2 billion in market cap just from the bad press.
Yeah,
And that's not
something
even,
that's basically
yeah,
unforeseen.
yeah.
But it just, yeah, it's just not a good look. But we know that this is just it's a new company. So essentially, they're still paying for all the decisions made by the previous owners of the company,
Regime,
the
yeah.
regime, if you will, uh, who set out to basically just use whatever character is out there and see what sticks, and just create movies that have a certain budget limit.
Well,
That was
are
their
you talking
goal.
about specifically DC, or are you talking about Warner
Well,
Brothers
this
in
is
general?
Walter Hamada, right?
Right.
The head
Who
of
barely,
DC
by the
Film.
way, he said he was going to quit before the movie was canceled,
Yeah.
before Batwoman
So
was
essentially,
canceled.
a lot of so basically, what I'm getting at is a lot of this drama is centered around the people who have new jobs and the people who have been fired, and this is all based off decisions that they made for the company to move forward with. So
Right.
when WBD formed, when Discovery bought Warner Brothers, they have their own strategy on how they're going to profit off of their IPs, their content, and the things they make.
It's
So
it's so
unfortunately, in
crazy.
that transition period, the decisions that were already made that have schedules and contracts by Walter Hamada, Toby Emmerich, and everyone who worked at Warner Media, they don't want to keep going with that.
Well, I think it's more than that, Jeremy, though, because like the motivation isn't, well, we feel like the direction that the company was going was failing, and that might be true in some regards, specifically with DC
I don't
properties.
think
But
they thought that, because producing movies is a risky business. But who
yeah,
they had in play with someone like Walter Amato, has tons of producing experience, was very successful in like the Conjuring movies and
sure,
It or something. Like he did
yeah, they
that's
make
why he
money,
got the job.
sure.
Uh, but with Zaslav and WBD, when they talk about DC and how they want to protect the brand, have event style films, the set budget and limitations creatively behind Batgirl for a streaming
Right.
movie does not fit into their plan on re-engaging the audience on what DC is, and that's focusing on the Trinity and not all these offshoots of characters, which is what Walter Amada wanted to do to make his version of the MCU.
Well, okay, so
And And on top of that, they need to save as much money as possible
Yeah,
is
so
their
I
goal.
think that's okay. Exactly. Thank you for saying that because
Yes.
that's really I think
So
what's
they
going on here.
threw Batgirl under the bus.
90, 100, whatever, $90 million tax write off. That's
Yes.
the right.
It wasn't too expensive, but it has a lot of heart and character and people behind it. But it made sense
But
in
it
terms
does
of a
not
new
matter.
strategy
Yeah.
for their event films and bringing people to the theater and making Warner Brothers that legendary kind of studio that it started as.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they can't release Batgirl on a streaming service. They
Well,
just
it
the
doesn't sound like
math.
that movie's ever coming out ever.
Yeah, exactly. Because the
Yeah.
math, with all that being said, they're willing to just throw it under the bus because it wasn't going to be. They just knew what they had. They knew what it was meant to be on the HBO
Sure.
Max streaming
And listen,
service.
listen. I'm not. I don't want to defend. I don't, I don't want to throw it WBD and just under the bus and just say everything they're doing is wrong.
Mhm.
They're justified in some of their
That's
decisions, I
easy.
think, but I think at the same time this
This was a
like
crazy one. This is the
cut
big
cut
domino. We're
cut
still talking about
slash
it.
slash slash decision making that it,
Yeah,
here's what it looks like from the outside. It was what it certainly feels like
looks
as a
terrible.
fan of Warner Brothers and fan of their properties and a fan of movies and movie making. It feels like Discovery was in debt and purchased Warner Brothers as a means to literally suck it dry of all its value to keep it afloat. And that is
Mm.
it feels like a vampire sucking out all of its everything that it made Warner Brothers any good. They're just like, no, throw it out. We don't need that. Now, I agree that it did need some uncomfortable shakeups.
Yes, because
Go look
remember,
at
before WBD, Christopher Nolan leaves Warner Brothers.
yeah.
Okay, this is before Zaslav. The studio was heading in the wrong direction. Even if you're a fan of DC and Batgirl, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to see that. Walter Hamada, they knew what they were doing. Make a Shazam movie, make a Blue Beetle movie, make a Batgirl movie. Go ahead and do it. We want to see these characters for sure.
Yep.
But with the state of theater going experiences
Not
and
good.
this genre of
Yeah.
superheroes, we can't just keep throwing things at the wall and seeing what's going to stick. Even if there's cool creatives behind it, like
Right.
Brendan Fraser, like Leslie Grace, like the
I
directors,
can't even dare even
like
mention Brendan
it's
Fraser.
so
I just
it's
so
just so
feel so
tough.
bad for that guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay.
But so that's why the positive nature in me is coming through because I've already been done with Warner Brothers and where they were going before
Well, just
with
go look
what
back at the last 10 years of our podcast. It was like
yeah.
every other week was like, oh, another director fired, another movies, another direction for oh, this wasn't received well. This
New DC head, Jeff Johns.
yeah,
He's gonna
exactly. Like
bring in Joss Whedon for
exactly.
reshoots.
Oh,
Yeah, make it
we'll
funny.
see. Exactly. So all the yeah, make it funny.
So
So it's
basically,
like
all those people are
yeah.
gone, but to the general public, it doesn't really seem that way. It just seems like okay, it looks like they were making some cool movies, and now they're just oh no, we're not going to give you that, and we don't know what we're getting
Well,
now though.
the thing is though, it's
So we
more
don't
than that though.
once we know what we're getting, which in that call it
The
was
10-year
about the
plan.
Trinity and those three characters, and 10 years, which we said is a long time, but in that 10 years, you can definitely get a new Batman movie. That you can definitely new Wonder Woman, definitely a Superman movie. Again, 2013 since we've seen Superman have his own
Are
movie.
is the Batman 2 greenlit yet? Is that official or is it still up in the air? Is that
Well,
still a question mark?
there's reports that wasn't greenlit, but also what's the director?
Yeah. Crap.
Um,
Yes. Yeah. Anyway,
love putting you on the spot for a name drop.
please
It just
never
it
do
never
that to
works
me.
out.
You please never do that to me. Matt Reeves.
Matt
Matt
Reeves signed
Yeah.
a first look deal with Warner Brothers, so he's sticking with Warner Brothers. Zaslav has put a ring on it, quote unquote. He already mentioned the
That's funny.
Batman in his own call with his own voice, right, as being a huge hit for the studio and an event film. So
Mhm.
Matt Reeves he's making the Batman too for sure. Um, but the rumors are that Zaslav wants that connected tissue, and when you bring back someone like Ben Affleck to Aquaman, which has again been pushed, pushed far back.
Yes.
And Shazam, a trailer we just got at Comic-Con, is not coming out this year.
Jeremy, remember when they? I don't know if you remember this. Remember that little like sizzle reel that was before the Batman? Like, look forward to these
With
movies from
Flash and-
from Warner Brothers DC
Yeah.
this year, and it had like all
You
these
had
cool
your,
things.
You
in
had
it.
your Snyder cut. Now look at this thing with Michael
Yeah.
Keaton as Batman.
Right, and then
Michael
literally,
Keaton, remember him?
literally, not one of those movies is coming out this year.
And then the hashtag release make the Batfleck movie. I just love it. I love when, and then people, the fans are toxic. They don't know what they're talking about. It's like, man, at the end of the day, we just want cool movies with the right, the
Well,
right.
so here's the thing, I guess,
people.
Jeremy. How much more cutting, I guess, for lack of a better word, like how much more pain are you willing to endure of this?
It's done. I don't
Is
have
it's over?
I don't have any more pain. Like we got
they've tortured, they've touched it out of
like
you.
I think it's funny to like act that way, but like we got the Snyder Cut. We have a 4-hour rated R Justice League.
Yep.
I'm still enamored by it. It's amazing, and we got that. And you can spin it however way you want to who takes the credit and who's to blame and the bad president and
Right.
there's all this bullshit. Blah blah blah. The movie exists. It's out there. People can decide what's better. The latest hit piece off Variety was, did you see it? It was
I don't think so.
insiders are saying that Warner Brothers regrets releasing the Snyder Cut. It's like, what are you?
What does that even
fucking
matter at this
kidding
point?
Me? Why is that an article? Why is that trending?
I can
movie
understand
is
why
out.
that would be. I understand why someone would be interested in writing that. I can
Well,
see
no,
that.
I'm saying I'm trying to talk about like let's reflect on ourselves here. Why? The movie is out. There's no sequel in sight. There's decisions being made to get these heroes that we also desperately want into the theaters to focus true quality on them. And unfortunately, there's these dominoes that have to take into effect to eradicate the decisions that Toby Emmerich and Walter Amada made with their DC slate and what they were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the era of Zaslav, and the era of Zaslav means two things. It means cost cutting, and it means a 10-year plan. But we're not going to tell you what that 10-year plan is.
But they have a 10-year plan. They have a guy and they have a team building a cohesive universe. And the rumors is that this individual, this seasoned producer, Dan Lin, who none of us have really heard of, but
Exactly.
when you read his credentials, it's like, okay, yeah, that guy's been alongside us this whole time,
right,
doing things.
Well, this is kind of why it's funny. It's like everyone's like, hey, they need their Kevin Feige. They're looking for their Kevin Feige. There's no other Kevin Feige. We talked about this before. There isn't one. So you need to have someone who has their own vision, who can, and generally speaking, we don't really know the names of producers. We don't really know the names of studio execs, right? Kevin Feige is a exception to that rule. The president of Disney is an exception to that rule.
Well, it's the people that
right?
That Feige worked with, right? Because Zaslav grabbed some of those guys to work with him at WBD.
So,
and forgetting the guy's name, but one of the main guys basically recommended Dan Lin.
Listen, I don't really know enough about what they've done to be able to say this is a good pick or not. It's not a good pick. It might be. Making a decision and letting them do their work is the only way to know. So, time will tell, in my opinion, right? We'll get there. We'll figure it out eventually, whether or not we think that the decision they made was the right one. But for now, we have to live with the fact that HBO Max and Discovery Plus are merging into one app. This unique and complementary take of this, that's literally the name of on the top of their slide here that I'm looking at, about how they describe the difference between HBO Max and Discovery Plus and what it means for them to come together, is still confusing. Are we going to get a Discovery Plus app with an HBO section? How does that all work? We actually had a DC streaming service. You guys remember this? DC Universe? This is a DC streaming service from like 2 years ago. So, it just feels like HBO is one of the only brands out of this whole thing that is like coming out of this kind of unscathed, like HBO proper, not HBO Max. And that's good because House of the Dragon is good. I keep wanting to call it Hot D, but I feel like it's too buzzy. It's too much of a BuzzFeed term for me. I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's just too like, isn't this funny?
I know, but it's like it's right there. What else are you gonna call it? Hotd? You know, GOT just rolled off the tongue. You know, but kind of like TOB, but they are officially merging. We don't know what that looks like yet. This is in a world where streaming is the biggest, most important thing in the world of media, and Warner Brothers is Discovery basically saying we'll do our thing. We'll merge these things, and it'll be mostly reality shows, but we want to go back to the way things used to be with theatrical experiences. Now, they're saying this at the same time that movie theaters are in maybe the worst state they've been in. The box office from last week was $55 million. That's every movie domestically, $55 million. Not one movie.
Isn't
all of them.
Top Gun's gonna like go it on top too? Apparently,
Top Gun's gonna finish the summer as the number one movie. And
like its weekend though, it'll be like number one.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's been the number one in its like 9th, 10th week it just continues. It's crazy. So it's what's even funnier about this is that during this, there's like a dry period where, like right now till middle of September, basically. There's no really big movies coming out. So I saw emails from Cineplex. I saw emails from other movie chains basically saying, please come to the theater. We're slashing ticket prices. They're doing official the cinema day in the States where all these movie chains are doing movies for $3. And it just screams of desperation, and it's sad, to be honest. This is the same studio that last year said, we're not going to release any of our movies exclusively theatrically. We're going to release them all day and date on HBO Max.
That was Jason Kilar's decision.
Yeah, it's so great. I know, but so they're like
people with jobs,
and everyone said that's a dumb idea, and then turns out it was, and now now HBD saying, hey, our WBD, that was a bad idea. We're not doing that anymore. But it feels like they're going all the way the other way, and they're actually undercutting what made HBO Max. HBO Max is actually great. I wish we had HBO Max proper in Canada. Too many
streaming services. Who cares?
Well, it was. I think it was quickly rising to the top of being one of the better ones. Right? I agree. We have too many. There's too many streaming services. But it's like the alternative is that Warner Brothers sells all of its streaming rights to Netflix and Paramount Plus and Apple TV and Disney Plus, and that they're all it's all over the place. And there's no home for DC content and all that kind of stuff, which in and of itself is a problem because shows like that we thought were for sure going to be canceled, like Batman the Caped Crusader. There was rumor that show, which was the spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series, probably the most influential version of Batman maybe ever made. With
a second domino.
Right. They're like, that show's not going to make it. Now it turns out that's probably not the case, but it's not going to going to HBO Max. It's going to be sold. Its streaming rights will essentially be sold off to the highest bidder. So it could go anywhere.
Matt Reeves potentially saved that deal from not happening because of the contract he just signed of the First Look, which spans all types of media production.
So he basically said, "I want this to continue," and he endorsed it.
Well, I think it's just a bad look when like you wanna nail this guy who's show running one of the main dudes of your Trinity in Batman, one of the most recognizable figures.
Just made you a bunch of money.
Yeah, you're gonna keep going with him in that regard because you like his take, you like what he's doing. A lot of people do; they dig it, and he wants to work with the legend Bruce Timm on that character, and you're just gonna say no, you can't do that, but you can do the other thing.
Well, especially it's in middle of production. It's like they're making the show.
And they can't just cut every animated.
Well, they did certainly try. They removed.
Harley Quinn was renewed, and like there's memes around that. It's like Zaslav asked, like, how many viewers? It's like, oh, record numbers through the roof, and then he says back, green light. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, hey, that is good news because that show is great. So maybe this is the note here is like, don't worry, if your show's good or your movie's good, you'll be fine.
Yeah, but then there's the fandoms like, well, let us decide. It's like, dude, when we let you decide and it's something we have baked, it just gets torn to shreds. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Even if there are good people involved, unfortunately, the budget and the writers we hired, they didn't nail something that's going to resonate and be this huge thing.
Well, you can't half-ass shit. People know they can smell bullshit from a mile away, and if you try to,
what we know though is that Leslie Grace didn't half-ass it.
Right.
Who else did we mention? Brendan
Fraser. Oh,
for sure.
Stop saying his name. God damn it.
Didn't half-ass it, which is
No
why
way.
it's such a tragic thing. But I think when we do think in terms of business and what they're promising, we have to just see we're at that point with this new regime.
Yeah, you have to let it. You have to let it settle.
We actually have to, even though we've been treated so shitty already. You know.
Well, I feel bad for these creators. Like I said before, 36 titles were removed from HBO Max, not because the project was in development and they're never coming out. They were done on the streaming service available to watch. And then they just pulled them down.
But it's also probably because nobody's watching.
Well, I mean, I don't understand. This is where I don't understand. This is where I don't understand. Their excuse was, well, we only pulled down shows that no one was watching because we didn't want to pay residuals on it, so we could save money. Well, if no one's watching it, you can't really be paying that many residuals. You know what I'm saying? So, pick one. If you're trying to save money, there's better less.
I think it's like it's so simple because like. Things add up. Like we can correlate that to our everyday lives and
So I say pinching pennies, man.
You know what I mean? So imagine major projects where every production has 300 people or 200 people or 150 people, and it's over months or weeks or even a year, and there's hundreds of those productions. Pulling the plug on those is gotta save you a ton.
Sure, I agree with that, but those are all active productions, and these aren't all. These are titles that their productions were years ago, and we're talking about. I mean, again, sure, if no one's watching it, fair enough. But the problem is
that's what it comes down to.
Where you, if you want to see it, where can you do that now? Right? This is where people are like, well, you got to buy physical, right? It's like, fuck, no,
Which I'm not about.
I mean, for some things, but not everything, right? So, I sympathize mostly with these creatives who are being treated like shit. And
for sure,
and it's all to save money, and it's like ugh, it's gross. I think
it's still different than the Batgirl scenario, but it's so easy to confuse them or just to.
Well, I mean, they're all motivated by the same thing. We need $3 billion in savings. That's where it all comes from. It starts and stops there.
100%. But like these people will go on Twitter and give their sob story of something that got canceled, and they made the show. It's just not continuing. That literally happens all the time.
Well, yeah, sure. That does happen all the time. But what if you're like,
what if a group of them are being done in mass? It's because you're owned by all the same thing who need to save billions of dollars. No one's getting away scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. This is still a business, an art-based business. So there, in my opinion, there is a balance you need to strike between the business side and the show side.
I think it's easy to sell right now who the bad guy is and how could you. But
I just think there's a better way of going about all these things. I understand the decisions you're making, but you don't have to go about it by in the night pulling the plug on these 36 titles. Why?
What are you supposed to do? You have a spokesperson like the president who just stands in front of a bunch of people.
There's better ways of doing it.
We're going to rip apart all of your explanations.
Yeah, it's not going to please anyone.
You're asking
everyone
for a sugar coating.
No, I'm asking for some respect. I'm saying that these people weren't treated with respect.
You won't,
and they deserve respect. 100%.
Sure, I don't disagree.
This is their work.
But like,
they're
what are they going to say to where you're going to be like, you know what? I respect that.
Listen, like I said, it all comes down to how you message these things. They didn't message this well. It's this blowback is all on them because
the foresight wasn't there, but at the end of the day, it's new people in a new company who inherited an these people who are not continuing with the company, so fired. They're inheriting all those individual
Yeah, and
decisions.
listen, I understand more. Probably, I'm in the middle of
So
taking
they
over for
didn't have
someone
the
who's.
foresight of being like, okay, we want to just kind of address like, you know what, these people here who they're not in our company because we bought them for $45 billion, and we're doing our own thing now, which we think you're really gonna like, but you're not gonna like hearing all this now. So what could we possibly say to
Yeah, I
make
think
you
I
feel
think that's
okay
a
that
cop out
that girl isn't coming out?
because you can frame it in, hey, this is challenging, this is difficult, but we have to make these
They
decisions.
already
And
said you
yeah,
guys
but
are
then no, but
welcome
they did that
back to
after after
work
the
with
fact.
us. It was
It's
all while it was happening.
yeah, I mean, sure, but I mean, there's
There's no
parts of
perfect way,
this.
is all I'm saying, because we're going to be on here, we're discussing no matter what, and we're going to say, okay, that just seems fake, or they're just
Well,
doing that to save
I'm
face.
not necessarily going to take their word for everything, but I would appreciate there being a word on something. For instance, like I said, people woke up one day and their shit that they worked on is just off the streaming service, right? And they don't have a physical copy. They don't might not even have a version of the thing they worked on now. So it's like,
Yeah.
or any way to get it.
No, those
So
stories, no matter how you dice it, they suck. It just
yeah, and that's what I
it
mean.
sucks.
But this could have been handled better. So that's the issue, right? You need to save $3 billion. Fine. This is
Well, I
a
mean,
business with people
but
involved. You need
also
to treat them with respect.
we don't have to keep
That's
going
my
on it,
yeah.
but like just my final thought, like you already scoffed at the funeral
The show, at
showing,
least
like
they're being
back then.
shown, I guess.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just there's not like I think they have that type of foresight where you just can't really appease everyone, and even the perfect writer can't come up with a perfect apology or like strategy to do
sure.
this. We have to act so much shit. We just have to keep going with the fact that we're a new company. We have new careers and people involved here. We we can't get more in debt. We're doing this because of the math and how we our new foresight on our strategy. It is what it is.
Yeah. Um, here's a couple other items that happened. CW is being sold to Nexstar Media. We found out during that the average age of the CW viewer was 58 years old. So they're changing its programming to fit that demographic better. So look for more procedurals and what's the word that they use for reality TV? Unscripted programming.
Right, which is part of Discovery's whole thing, right?
Yes.
Like even
Yeah.
their earnings call, they had a graph where like it had the two sectors.
Yeah. So you want me to read the two sectors here? It's pretty funny. So HBO Max, male skewing, scripted. It's lean in.
We can attest. You know what? We can attest to that lead in though. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
sure. Yeah. Appointment viewing, home of quote unquote fandoms. That's the funniest part. That's
No, that's not
home
the
of
funniest one.
fandom.
Just the
I,
male and the female skew,
well,
I think,
male, female. Yeah,
is the
Discovery
bad
Plus.
one.
Female skewing, unscripted, lean back, comfort viewing, home of
It's bad.
genredoms, which is I think a term
It's
that they just made up for the
yeah.
record. But yeah,
I mean, I think that that comes off of a measurement of what Discovery, their content, and
sure.
who they reach.
Who's
And I think
watching
it is
this?
largely female, but to see it in this comparison, it's very unfair because like
It's yeah.
who's like it's just deducing it to these two extremes of, yeah, if you're female, you're
Imagine
not going to want to
someone's
lean in or have appointment viewing,
right,
you don't like drama or whatever, you just want unscripted,
right,
free flow,
right.
easy
Lean
going.
back. Yeah.
You work too hard, you don't want to get
Right.
lost
You don't
in
want to
Lord of
think.
the Rings.
Listen, you don't want to turn on your brain and think. You just want to
Yeah.
watch stuff, right?
So that got by some people, and I don't think that should have
I
been
think it's hilarious that someone put that on a slide and was like, "Yeah, send it." Like as
I
if
think
that's
it's
not. Yeah.
because like how we talked about it, like where the Discovery audience skews to, it is
Right.
measurable to more female. I think they just saw that measurement and weren't really thinking of the optics behind that
Yeah,
comparison.
and like so, it's fun. Listen, it's fun to dunk on that. That's funny
Yeah.
shit. But the question is, how do you blend those two into one thing, which is what HBO Max Discovery Plus merging will be. Who knows? I mean,
Who knows?
Disney Plus technically has a National Geographic section that is like some of that stuff. they handle it pretty well because they have literally subdivided their streaming service into like it's Disney proper, you know, like princesses and that kind of stuff. Marvel, Star Wars. Then they have Disney Plus Star here in Canada, which is Hulu in the States, and then National Geographic or Nat Geo, what they call it for short. So if they do something similar with that, I think it could work. We'll see. Like I said, we've spent a lot of time talking about this already. Jeremy, where does Black Adam fit into all this?
Oh my God. Well, like we have been saying for so long, like this movie, it just so happened in the timeline of things to be The Rock's like shot
Right.
at
To make the movie. He's been wanting to make it for 10
in this
years or 20 years. Whatever.
yeah, in this changeover with this particular movie with such a big name, a movie that Zaslav cannot cancel, right? It's uncancelable.
No, you can't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It
So
could never, yeah.
it's coming out no matter what, but it's in the Hamada kind of producing realm.
It's in the
Even
same.
though
It's in the same tone and feel as some of the last
as
probably 3 years
Shazam,
movie. Yeah.
yeah, like all that stuff. Aquaman to an extent too, because that was also the Hamada changeover. That
Right.
one clearly didn't share the Snyder
No,
tone.
it certainly did not.
Yeah.
Though I gotta admit, I gotta admit, we did like Aquaman. Not
well, me
everyone
and
did.
you, but
Yeah.
like you know that there's a lot of people who didn't. Like
Well,
like even at family gatherings, the people like
Yes.
who want to talk to me about like movies and
Yes.
stuff. Like it's so funny that like when you see those people on Twitter or whatever, like I can see them in my little like circle of people.
Yep.
And like even our friend Eli, like just like what like
He
just
hated it.
trash.
I also was
Yeah.
thinking about that too. He's just like, I hated that movie.
And
He's
I'm like,
I-
I'm like happy that he hated it because like I don't really like what they tried to spin with it, even though
Right.
it was like entertaining to me and like I just appreciated that whole aspect of like
well,
the
the cast
cheesiness
was
of it.
great and it
Yeah.
looked really good.
And Justin,
yeah.
or not Justin Lin, who's the
Is it
director?
not Justin Lin? Is it not?
I don't think it's Justin. I think it's a different first name.
It's another Lin.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I'll look
We
it
can
up.
Look this up.
Aquaman film series by. Da, da, da. Please stop asking me to name people's names. It's not gonna. It's just not gonna work. It's James Wan, not
Yes.
Justin Lin. Yeah, we're just racists. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
all. Anyway, so I just what I find interesting about this whole thing. We were just mentioning this before we started recording, which is that I find it fascinating to watch The Rock try to tap dance his way around the reception to this film, which has been negative primarily. Because he's not used to that type of reception, and it's interesting watching this fan base that is, I think, pretty tuned in. Like they know what what they want,
But they're also being attacked through the hit pieces on Variety and Deadline.
Sure, and they
and then The Rock just has to answer questions about Superman, and he can't.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's his own fault because he kept talking about the hierarchy of power. You know,
Right.
So I just find it fascinating to watch The Rock handle this or try to deal with this because I don't think he's handling it very well.
He's going guns a-blazing. He's just so confident. He's talking about record number, rating, world trailer,
making
score.
up numbers left and right.
He's just chugging along. It's the first time, to his credit, in his entire career, where I see the cracks and I do not see what like The Rock is anymore. I just see a machine.
He's
keeping the ball rolling, and this is a huge shot. It's a huge character and
he's a promotional
popular
machine
genre. Yeah. And if this movie doesn't back it up, which we thought it always would, when he was talking about this character, when the Snyderverse was chugging along, when Henry Cavill was cast as Superman, when Ben Affleck was cast as Bruce Wayne Batman, we're like, man, throw The Rock in there, then DC really has something going for them. And Marvel
remember what did they call The Rock? He was a franchise
Viagra.
Franchise Viagra. Yeah,
now he just takes over. It's like the Oprah, like you get a car. It's just like he's just done everything now. Like I'm in this, I'm in that, I'm in this.
He literally is in everything. But here's the thing that's I think really like spot on, which is that the fan base is like, wait a fucking second. I thought we were getting a Black Adam movie. What we're getting is
a
the
Rock
Rock
as a
as
superhero.
Black Adam. It's pretending he didn't change his hair or his voice or his like.
The
Really, it's
pointy
just the
ears.
costume, right? It's like I know, and that's funny. It's like, well, they couldn't even try with the ears. I'm like, that's fine. They don't need the pointy ears.
Then there
That's
was a
really not a
huge
big deal.
discourse on Twitter with the creator of Deadpool, and he like stated that the Black Adam has never been like this popular character that's been utilized
Absolutely not.
or whatever.
Hundred
Well, there are
percent. That's
people
true.
who like there's people who like bring up the New 52 and like all these new storylines that Black Adam has been a part of, which I guess is the case, but I think that's only
Yeah, he's
recent.
riding the
That's like
coattails
Jeff
of
Johns
that stuff.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's at this point that's a long time ago now. And like,
Mhm.
listen, fair enough. No one's arguing that Black Adam is like, a top tier character and they have to respect. I think that's kind of a little, it is
Mhm.
playing a little false. But like, and so I'm fine with them doing tweaks here or there to that story and that character to make it work. But again, what people are seeing is, hey, this isn't a Black Adam story. This is
The
a Rock
trailer
movie.
is just so horrendous. It's
The moment where
hiding.
he throws that
It's
guy into the
hiding
sea
behind.
is so funny to me.
No, the
Like,
moment
not in a
where the
good
guy
way.
hits him on the head with the baton,
Right.
and we
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
just sit there and see the Rock exude. Oh, I'm like, what is this supposed to be funny?
It's literally 10 scenes of him just
Oh
being
yeah, that
hit
is the
with
same scene.
bullets.
I guess. I
It's
guess that
like
is the same scene that
yeah,
you're
it's
saying.
being hit by bullets exactly because he throws the guy into
He
the. He's
throws
like,
him out
"Wah!"
after because
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
oh, why would you ever think he's not super powerful? And
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, he dodges a rocket and he gets hit by a oh, he gets shot, but it doesn't hurt him.
it's
Oh,
like
the pipe doesn't hurt him. No
DC.
shit.
So we just have these two different types of fan. Like, I don't need a trailer selling me with comedy bits
Yeah, no.
when it comes to Black Adam.
And listen, no, I mean, it's like, okay, comedy bit is like it's fine. There's every movie has
Sure,
most
but
movies
like,
have a little bit of comedy, but that's not
think
what we're
about
here
where we're
for.
coming from with DC,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The Dark Knight trilogy had its humor inside those movies, right? It was
yes,
mostly the Batman disappearing and oh, okay, he's gone,
right.
right? And somewhat
Well,
whatever.
there's some other
Some
funny,
others, sure,
yeah,
they're
right.
fine, they're good.
Speak of
We're
the
not
devil and he
seeing
shall
those
appear.
we're not seeing those in the trailer.
Right.
We're not selling the
One might
Dark
argue
Knight.
that Bane's entire character was one big joke and at the end
Sure,
of the
but
trilogy. But that's one
it's
other
just
thing.
like, man, it's so much cooler to just not show me Black Adam getting hit with the baton and everyone being so shocked,
Right.
and then he kicks
Yeah.
them super far.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the joke. Isn't it
Like,
funny how strong he is? Yeah.
dude.
So anyway, it's like watching a slow motion car crash, and it's
And
very
how the
interesting.
hell? Okay, I'm gonna call this right now. How the hell is this Black Adam Hawkman battle gonna go down? Like, is it actually? Is it gonna be good? Are we gonna
Well,
see some cool shit? Or is he just gonna
yeah.
catch his mace and then
Well, yeah, and then he's just
blast
gonna
him back?
stare at him, right?
Just a
Do
little
that.
bunch of staring, the Rock
Yeah.
frown eyebrows.
Well, here's the thing, like, and I think this is where again, the fandom being very astute, basically saying like, hey, the whole thing with this Rock never losing and like has to look cool in every movie, it's old. Like, where's the
Yeah,
drama
so
if
that's
he
the
always
thing.
wins? Like, what the
Dude,
fuck? You
that's
know what I
the
mean?
thing. The Rock wants to be the new DCEU and the start of it and do Justice Society. The people are in my movie, and then I'll always be around. So you're just going to be this villain that you want to be an anti-hero that's always going to be around?
Right.
Where's the weight?
There's
Where's
none.
the world-ending shit?
Yeah.
Like, dude, we had that with the Snyder stuff. That's why the fandom is so confused and so against one another. We had
Yeah.
very cool storytelling happening, and now we're getting the Batgirl, the Blue Beetle, it's just content, which is great.
Right.
100, it's great. We love these characters, Latino character,
I liked Shazam
all
for
that
the
stuff.
record. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
David Sandberg, the director, brought a lot of good stuff to that movie
Mhm.
in that production.
It's just so
But
crazy that
but let's get these
Yeah.
DC characters, these iconic DC characters we grew up with, the Justice League animated series with all those characters involved and all their arcs. Let's
it's too
just
obvious, Jeremy. It's too obvious.
let's just get these characters on film. Let's pay respect to them. Let's not just jump the gun and listen to critics and listen to it's I don't know. I don't know what to listen to because like I feel like some people know what they're talking about, some people don't know what they're talking about. So it's
Well,
like
I think the whole point is you're supposed to have a wide variety of things. I try to listen to and read is like a wide variety of things. I think that's the idea. You can't just be like, this is my guy.
well, I guess
This,
I
you know what
mean
I mean?
like it's like well it's like listen to the fans, but then it's like well well maybe the fans are a cult.
Well, the fans aren't.
The fans
The
are a
fans
cult.
aren't.
We've decided they're a
The
cult. They're the
fans
worst
aren't
fandom of
all
all
decide.
time.
They're not all agreeing on one specific way or vision.
It's like
There's
no,
not
the
one
Star Wars
movement.
fans are the
Yeah.
worst. Yeah, those ones are the worst. Yeah, it's like what? Because they
Yeah,
hang out on threads on the internet.
Well, there is like, listen, we're not. I'm not good. We're not going to pretend like there isn't some element of truth to
Well,
the
see, the
toxicity.
thing
There
is
is.
that what
There
I
is.
figured out is that there are people who they're part of business online. They're
Yeah.
part of blogs and these types of things, and they might have a blue check mark, and they might have a lot of followers, and people tune into their streams, maybe pay for their Patreon, and they've been
Right.
attacked by some people online because they've garnered a following, and their feelings are hurt from it. And they it's not fun for them, and they express that, and they tie it to a fandom, and they generalize a fandom, and then it becomes called a cult. When there's many examples of all sorts of toxicity on every single fandom that exists, there's not one that is more so
Well,
than the
Jeremy,
other.
I think that comes back to the grifting thing, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you can tap into this negativity, you can tap
Mhm.
into this
You can
this
convince people
anger
that
that's
it's
so
you can convince
motivating.
people that it's
Right.
real. And
Well,
then like that's why and that's why we have different opinions on oh what we give credit to or what it really is. It's like I don't know, dude. There's so much toxicity out there. Who exists to determine on what is what? And then
who am
but
I?
we are so below these people who have like bigger followings that they express it so much to us. And we feel so sorry for them, and they just label what they want it to be labeled, and they speak as if it's true. And I think there's too many opinions out there to just cast
I don't know.
this
It's tough
specific
because
judgment.
we've seen it we've seen it live. I mean, the Last Jedi stuff. I think you mentioned that there was a tweet that you sent me, where, and this is from Alex Zalben on Twitter. Though a lot happened before and more since late 2017 with the release of The Last Jedi and Justice League, seems like a clear inflection point for a breaking of popular fan culture, as well as the degrading of discourse between professional critics and online commenters. And yes, I'm aware that some other things may have happened in the world in late 2017 which exacerbated those issues beyond two movies, but the point being that those two seem to have the focus, right? Star Wars and DC get a lot of attention as being,
Well, yeah, specifically Last Jedi and Justice League,
right.
which are two examples of where you have Star Wars, where you give a new creative the keys to the kingdom, much
Mm-hmm.
like you gave Zack Snyder create a new creative keys to the kingdom. But with Ryan Johnson, they let him do what he wants, and with Zack Snyder and Justice League, they took it away from him and spun it into a way they thought would make more money.
Yeah, it feels
So you
grifty
have
the same way.
two projects, and then so by the way, the one where Ryan Johnson he got to do what he wants. Some people think it's the worst Star Wars movie ever made.
But some people think it's the best.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It constantly ranks at the top of my list of Star Wars movies. I love The Last Jedi. I'm not gonna. And the funny thing is, there is some. Those two movies do have some sort of indelible something about them that makes them magnetic because, I don't know if it can be described as simply, oh, it's just these two examples of creators getting creative control, because there's other examples of that and they're not nearly as polarizing. But I remember I commented on a tweet recently about The Last Jedi, and basically said it was good. I haven't had that much traction on a tweet in years, Jeremy. And half of it was people saying it's the worst movie ever, and the other half saying it was the best. And it was like,
what I mean.
this is crazy. It never ends. It will never stop. So there might be something. There might be some truth to that. I don't know, but like the breakdown discourse between critics and fans is tough because I think there's always been a frayed relationship there. You know, this idea, it goes back to the 70s and 80s, and it's like this idea that what do critics know? They don't know. You know, it's what makes a good movie. It's
Well,
just
dude,
you know what I mean? Like,
what are critics these days, right? Like you tried to send me to some guy's Patreon on Twitter that you follow, right? Sweeney or something, or
oh yeah, that's not.
and I
I
was
mean,
like, dude,
Patreon.
never send me that guy's shit ever again. Like like you're like, I think you'll understand the Snyder toxicity fandom if you listen to this guy. And it's like, man, this guy's literally trying to get his patrons to tune in and pay for him because he had such a rough day with people tweeting at him. It's like, give me a break, dude. You're not a part of the Snyder cut. You don't know Zack Snyder. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
But
but then,
because you've
but at
been
the same time,
attacked
you got people
online,
like Leslie Gray, or not Leslie Grace. What's her name? That Twitter personality who claims to
oh,
do
Grace
know all those
Randolph,
things.
she's a
Grace
scooper.
Randolph,
She's just
right?
yeah, she's just a
It's
random
like,
scooper person.
yeah,
She's a total grifter.
and like that stuff. That stuff I think is just as bad. So I mean, I don't want to get too much in the weeds here. But
Well, I
there's a
just
lot.
think
Yeah,
that I just like the meat of it, the disagreement between me and you over all these years. I feel like it's getting to a point where I understand a bit more, to the point, like, to kind of compare it to you. If you don't, it's like you don't understand why people don't like The Last Jedi. You know what I mean?
no, I
Like, you
do
just
understand why people
don't.
don't like it.
Right.
I just don't agree with
Do
them.
you?
Yeah.
But what is that even, right? If you understand but you don't agree.
Well, it's like it that is funny. It's like, yeah, what does that mean? I mean, to me, it means like I can see where you're coming from. It's like you didn't like the casino scene. You thought it was dumb and it was silly and it slowed down the pace. I didn't see that. I didn't feel that, but I can see why you might think that, right? You know, the stuff
But
about
then why do then if you exist and more people like you exist, and the opposite, why does it have to keep being talked about then?
I don't know, because every time I talk about how I love the way that they treat Luke Skywalker in that movie, people tell me I'm stupid because because they shit on his character, and then they point to memes showing
Yeah, dude,
how
I saw a tweet.
Mark Hamill obviously hates Ryan Johnson. It's like, I don't think that's true.
I saw a tweet
Like,
today where it was in quotes, and it was a line of dialogue from Last Jedi.
right.
It was uh, Luke Skywalker's last words: "See you
Mm,
around, kid." And then it was like, that's a real line written in a real movie,
right.
like
Right.
basically saying, like, get a load of this. Like, I'm like,
Right.
this was
Can you
his line.
believe this was their last line? Like,
And
come
then
on.
for people like me and you, we're just like, we see that as a cap on this super crazy, unforeseen, badass Jedi
Totally.
new power moment that totally, like, just redeems Luke Skywalker because he just, helped everybody escape, and he defeated
Right.
the Empire in a sense,
Right. With
right?
a
And the
laser sword.
new, yeah. And then they even
Yeah.
mentioned the laser sword. And then people in the comments, yeah, he should have just took them down. Like, it's like, man, like, everything, things just go over people's heads,
Yeah,
and they
and
have
like this is what I mean. It's
expectations.
punching down. It's so easy to be like, "Oh, that sucks," because that's a lame line of dialogue. But it's like you could take any line of dialogue from any movie and be like, "That's dumb."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that
Any
I don't.
screen cap
Yeah,
of an awkward
right.
looking Ben Affleck or something, and be like,
So I
look at
think
this
it's
shit.
just a matter of people need an outlet. They're angry about certain things.
And then
they've
grifters
grown
keeping it
up.
going.
Yeah, I think by the way, part of it is that like people are growing up and they're like, "Man, I love Star Wars when I was a kid," and it's like, yeah, and it's still largely for kids. And if unless you can grapple with that, then internally in your own mind, you're gonna be like, this is bullshit because it's not how you feel like you remember it. But it's really not any different. It's just that you are changed and you don't know how to express those feelings. And again, this is generalizing, but that's where some of that hate comes from, which is this idea that this isn't how I wanted. This is not how it should be because it's not how I wanted it to be. And that's not.
Yeah.
It's just
Expectations.
not. It's not how it works. I don't know. Judge the movie for what it is, not for what you wanted it to
And
be.
I'll take this
Yeah.
opportunity to prop Ryan Johnson up with his quote on saying something nice about the prequel trilogy.
Right.
I don't know if you remember this. But he
This is
says Lucas
yeah.
made a gorgeous 7 hour long movie for children, which we were just talking
Yeah.
about how entitlement and fear of loss turns good people into fascists, and did it while spearheading nearly every technical sea change in modern
Yeah.
filmmaking of the
Yep.
past 30 years.
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson should be protected at all costs.
Well, he's just I think he gets it. That's the thing that and he said he's still proud of making Last Jedi. 5 years later,
He
he's still
doubled down. Yeah, he
he's
doubled
yeah,
down
he's like
today, and that's what I'm
absolutely.
talking about.
Right, and it's like damn right, and like so, I
But
think
no, he should speak to the toxicity and the fans and tell them to stand down.
well, thing is though like the toxicity they're after him. So it's like I don't
Oh
know if he
yeah, it's
could
on the other side. It's on the other side. Sorry.
right. It's hard for him to tell if he wishes those people would back down. You know what I'm
Sorry,
saying?
Last Jedi fans aren't the worst.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh man. Anyway, okay. A couple other stories. Matt Shackman is going to direct the MCU's Fantastic Four. He directed a lot of episodes, or not all the episodes of WandaVision. So we'll see what that's like. That's exciting. I'm just excited to see the like. I think was it Grace Randolph again? Actually, funny you mention her name.
Oh, we gotta stop talking about her. I
It was just
unfollowed her
so
so long ago.
it was so funny because she's like, oh, I saw the casting like the
Yeah,
casting
she's
call for Fantastic Four. It's like bullshit. You did
well,
no
dude.
way.
So apparently, like, she might have been
Yeah,
working for a company that was like owned by Warner Media.
right,
So it seems like she is having like a heel turn. If you want to put your tinfoil hat on for
right,
theories about scoopers, because that's what she is.
right.
So her
I'd rather
inside
not.
her inside information might be like not there anymore,
Right.
particularly for Warner Brothers. Um, because she would actually did a bunch of interviews with Zack Snyder himself in
Yes,
promotion
which is
and
why.
propped that movie up. But then
Yes.
she's recently had like a lot of inflammatory insider information posts about the Snyder toxicity fandom and
Right.
how it's basically ruined everything. Kind of correlating to that Variety hit piece on how they regret releasing it, which
Oh
is
man,
literally
crazy.
literally discussing uh, production company runners who have been fired who aren't continuing. Um, so it's just sad at this point that we're.
Yeah, but Fantastic
Oh,
Four,
and by the
Jeremy.
way, we haven't even talked about the Flash,
Yes.
which we talked about as we
Oh
went
my
earlier the
God.
week.
Oh
But he
yes.
apologized, which was
Oh
one of the
yeah.
three options that was
Oh.
leaked by Scoopers
Right.
that Zaslav wanted. Was like option one, he apologizes and we move forward, or he gets help, or option two, he does limited um, um,
It's such bullshit, Jeremy.
showing for the movie in the promotion tour because we can't show his face and release the movie, or third, we scrap it. And then the headlines come out
Yeah.
that Ezra isn't so much concerned with how the headlines are treating him and his activities, but more so concerned that that Warner Brothers is considering scrapping the Flash film altogether.
Oh,
So
now
they're
that gets his
painting it that
attention?
he is
Right.
apologizing not for his behaviors in terms of like what everyone's been saying, but for the sole fact that his movie might get canned.
I
So
his movie should be canned. That's
now
my
the
opinion on
movie
that.
we mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned, but Aquaman pushback, what we did briefly. So now that movie will be coming out after the Flash, and it's been leaked and then officially reported by Jason Momoa that Ben Affleck is back. He literally has a quote on the red carpet somewhere where he's like, "Fuck it, Ben's back," and we have a lot of surprises in store for
Right.
you guys. And didn't go much further than that. But then it was rumored before that Ben Affleck his Batman would die in the Flash, but now the Flash movie is coming out next summer. They didn't talk about that movie or push it when they literally pushed Shazam, which was supposed to come out at the end of this year. It's not coming out until next year now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Aquaman, filmed in the can, won't come out till Christmas of next year.
Yeah, it's
So
well,
these are all
apparently
decisions.
that one still has a lot of
Yeah,
post
so
effects
the
work to do.
decisions
So
that Zaslav and WBD and the new 10-year plan and whoever the showrunner is, whether it's Dan Lin or maybe Greg Berlanti, which I don't know if we discussed prior, but he
right.
was also rumored to be in the running. Um, yeah, these are all just decisions based off of that 10-year plan that are really obvious dominoes that are throwing a lot of people and creatives under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a wild time for that company, and the market share money that they're losing that was not part of their foresight in their strategy in releasing this information, but then quietly signing Matt Reeves to a first look deal
Yeah,
for
I
multiple
mean,
years.
we talked about this already. I mean,
Yeah.
the,
I just wanted to wrap up like
right,
this
the
whole
DC stuff.
segment
I
because
just
there
think
was
that
so much that we just
there's,
kept
it's crazy.
remembering.
The Flash thing is crazy because his apology comes off as so disingenuous
Yeah, it
because
was
of the
just like
timing.
option one, apologize, and he's just like, okay, send tweet.
Yeah, he's still like on the run from the fucking cops. Like, what do you like?
Well, no, there
Yeah.
are photos of him at his mom's house, I think, or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Okay. So he maybe. I mean, sure, fair enough. It just,
And
regardless.
it's
Again, this from a
yeah.
right. Apologies, but all things being said and done, it's just like the messaging around this couldn't be worse. So,
Yeah, because
yeah.
we can see through the whole business side, and then we can compare who's involved with Batgirl, and compare who's involved with Flash, and then we can compare the business side again, and we realize that they spent probably 300 million
Mm-hmm.
on the Flash,
Mm-hmm.
and and if they're going to cancel Batgirl, which is a lower cost and they can save money, that removes Michael Keaton's Batman, which we've been teasing forever, and this new
Mm-hmm.
next big thing of member berries and nostalgia and doing the Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield thing. We still can do a little bit of that, even though that was Hamada's decision. We're still going to make that happen in the Flash because it makes sense with that character, and hopefully Ezra can get his shit together, and we're gonna do we're gonna do this movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have much choice. We're gonna see it whether we want to or not at this
But
point, and it's gonna be a
also at the end
mess.
of the day, like maybe if I wasn't excited about it because I just think there's so much
Right.
baggage with it and new shit they're trying to do. A lot of that new shit has been like kind of canceled now or kind of reworked.
Yeah.
So and now with other movies being pushed and Ben coming back and the rumors of Henry coming back,
It's just a
Cavill.
mess, though. That's what I mean. Like, there's no way the Flash can be
It's
good now.
always been a mess that they've
Yeah.
never cleaned up and put a bow on yet.
So you're saying that
And with
it's
what
such of
we
a mess
knew
that
before,
you could
well,
pile it
well,
up
what,
and put some lipstick on a pig and maybe it'll work. Is that what you're saying?
no, because what we knew before with how they're trying to clean up, we were unsure of Henry Cavill, who was doing interviews where he's like, the cape is still in the closet. We saw Ben Affleck on Jimmy Kimmel saying, "I'm not Batman," with a question mark.
Right.
We Hamada didn't have a plan. He was trying to throw things at the wall, see what stuck, and then was going to make a Final Crisis movie with what we had in play at the time, or
Right.
sorry, an Infinite Crisis,
Right.
which was another article puff piece on his behalf that tried to come out saying that he had a plan. It's like, what?
Yeah. It's
Too
like, listen,
late.
if I make a mess, then I make a crisis movie. I can clean
Yeah.
it all up. Sure.
Because these
Whatever.
people need to get another job. They
That's
have
true.
the ability to
That's
to
the other
put
thing.
their narrative out there.
All these people are gonna fail upwards, so it's not a problem for them.
Mhm. I love the
Okay.
fail upwards analogy. It's one of my favorite things because
Yeah.
it's
so
so
apt.
apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly, a couple more things. Avatar is returning to theaters September 3rd this year. This is, it's fine. They just really wanted to get back to number one all time again, probably, now that they're owned by Disney. But the piece that really irks me is that ahead of this decision and without warning it to anybody, they pulled it from Disney Plus. You can't watch Avatar on Disney Plus right now because they want you to go to the theater to watch it. And I think I just like, man, we're talking a movie. How old is this movie? 10 years old practically at this point. And it's like, not
Yeah.
quite. I don't know. Yeah. It's like, and you're
Well,
going to tell
when
me,
it comes to
come on.
James Cameron, we're at this point. Okay.
You think it was James Cameron's decision?
We don't. I'm just gonna say this right now. We don't speak of living legends enough as they live and breathe.
Right.
And when all is said
Scorsese.
and done, we will be looking very fondly back at James Cameron. We still talk about sequels and how his sequels
batting 1,000
are some of the they're the best sequels of all time. There's no debate. when it comes
Well,
to
I get that. I
sequels.
understand that. I get that. I understand that. I just think it's bullshit to pull Avatar from Disney Plus. I
Yes,
did want to rewatch this
so
movie.
we're in a
so
streaming war, and
yeah.
it is weird. But when it comes to James Cameron, he is about the theater experience.
Yep.
Avatar is
Literally
it still number
only
one?
no.
Right? It's
It got passed. It got passed
well,
because Infinity War.
Endgame,
Yeah.
Endgame did something.
As their
But
Endgame, right? Yes.
I thought Avatar did something again.
They did, and then so they retook it, and then
Or
I think,
Titanic took something.
and then it came back again. So I think it's right now technically second, but I think
Yeah, so either way,
Yeah.
that
This will
movie
put it back to one.
belongs to the theater kind of discourse.
well,
right?
yeah, I don't think I've ever
Avatar
seen it
isn't-
not in a theater, to be honest.
And it's coming back in 3D, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And
I
it's
will go
been redone in
Jeremy.
better 4K.
Are we gonna go see it?
If it's available here, I mean, every now and then there's certain movies that don't come to our little city.
Yeah, it's bullshit. This one will come. It'll be there. There's nothing else playing. So,
Dude, I still remember sitting there, and the that little water drop in the beginning of the movie
right,
that it focuses
super cool.
on,
Yeah,
where what's his name? Sam Witt. Or what's the
Sam
actor name?
Worthington,
Yeah. No, is that it? Maybe.
Sam Witwer.
No, I think you're right the first time.
Yeah,
I thought that was brilliant, even though because we were used to gimmicky 3D, where like they throw a knife and it comes
Yeah.
at you or whatever.
Right.
Like, I just like the
Spy Kids 3D.
yeah. I just like the patience of it and the perspective of it.
Right,
And there was other elements
craft
of, that film
of
that did
it.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's just no way. Remember, the funny thing is, people don't just listen. Sure, no one remembers the name of the characters, yada yada yada. But it launched a whole 3D thing that made its way all the way to TVs. You could buy a 3D TV, and
PlayStation 3 had
that's got to
a
be
TV that was 3D.
It's so dumb. The idea of using
Well,
3D at home
there's
is so stupid to me.
There's a group of guys, the Heroes Reforged guys, which I follow, which is like Hector Navarro, who used to work for DC.
Yeah.
Adam Havlack or something, who used to be a CG animator on some Marvel movies,
Sure.
I think, including Winter Soldier. I've shared some stuff of them with you, but they're big proponents of, or like they prop up the 3D
right.
Blu-ray experience. Like
the
they're
3D
always,
Blu-ray
now
experience.
Yeah, like at home, the at home 3D experience.
I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Well, you look at I think Jaws recently in theaters. Spielberg, took part in a 3D conversion, not this. Let's crap out a 3D conversion.
Right.
It's Spielberg
right.
coming along.
Right.
I'm choosing the things that we're going to focus on that are going to pop. Right. Which also in my mind blends to the whole new scheme of cameras with the portrait mode and the blurriness of the background, the Army of the Dead.
The
example,
fake blurry background,
or mostly with sports, right? Like where they still don't.
Oh
get
my
it
God,
right,
Jeremy!
When they're filming the athlete, sometimes they're on the unfocus of them for too long.
Jeremy, the NFL is criminal in its use of this fake bokeh bullshit.
It looks
so bad.
To be fair, it looks great when it works, but it's obvious that when they're doing it in real time, the automation of it, they're not nailing it.
Jeremy, you can use it on your phone, right? You could put your phone to cinema mode on your iPhone 13
the portrait
Pro.
mode for photo and the cinematic mode for video. Yeah. If you're not using that for your photos, what are you doing?
Right. I mean, it depends on the photo, but anyway, so that's Avatar. Glass Onion, a Knives Out story, coming to Netflix December 23rd.
Daniel Craig, $200 million payday.
Had to relearn his Southern drawl.
Each?
Yeah, it's crazy. But hey,
another sequel.
Listen. If Netflix, which we know at this point, is very good at wasting its money, waste your money on good stuff at least.
I don't know this, but yes, Julian is. You know what
Are you
Netflix
kidding
is
me?
doing bad.
Jeremy,
Netflix is on the naughty list. I'm aware of that. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I don't watch everything.
Because here's the thing: the stuff that they do make that's good is almost always creator driven. So, like the Sea Beast movie, which is amazing. It's like clearly not a Netflix production. There's a lot of things that feel like Netflix production, and there's others that do not.
That lean in TV.
Yeah, it's that lean. Well, no, because some of their lean in TV is not good. And neither, by the way, is their lean back TV, their unscripted stuff, which is sometimes so bad that I don't even want. I can't even. The idea of the trailer even playing when I'm trying to browse through movies and TV shows is too much for me. So yeah, I mean, I think they're also turning things around. There's some better stuff. Their animation stuff is probably some of the best in streaming right now. But I can't say the same for their live action productions. Anyway, that will change because Glass Onion, A Knives Out story is coming to Netflix, and I'm very excited about that. I mentioned at the top A24, the art house studio, celebrating 10 years. A couple movies that jump out to me in terms of like movies that are important to me. Ex Machina, Alex Garland directed film, amazing, love that movie. There, Tusk, which is a Kevin Smith movie I've not seen, but hearing him talk about that movie because I was listening to his podcast a lot at that time was just, it sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard of. The whole concept of it is just disturbing, and I will never see it, but I know of it. I'll just put it that way. What else do we have here? Room, obviously this won Captain Marvel an Oscar, so that's worth something. Very intense movie. Green Room, not as good of a movie. Let's see here. Swiss Army Man. That's another movie I'm not probably ever gonna see, but it's that Daniel Radcliffe movie where he's like a dead body. That's like, these are those movies you're just not gonna see anywhere else. What else we're talking about? Most recently to me, there's obviously Lady Bird that also won an Oscar. The Florida Project, nominated for an Oscar. Hereditary, that movie, again, a movie that I'll probably never see because it sounds terrifying. The Green Knight is an A24 film, if I'm not mistaken. The Lighthouse, Midsummer. These are movies that are just like very distinct. There's movies aren't being made like this. I appreciate that. I'm happy that A24 is around. That's my pitch. Is there an A24 movie, Jeremy, that you, first of all, what do you think of when you think of A24? And is there an A24 movie that really stands out to you?
I think first of all, it would be like what is A24? I think that's what would be my first thought.
What's what? Okay,
but I'm
so they're
aware that it's like a production company, but I wouldn't be able to like, oh, these are tied to them. Thank you, A24.
First Reformed. There's another movie of theirs that I don't know. For me, it's just like it's artsy movies. That's what I think of when I think of A24. And
what do you think of Legendary Pictures?
I think of Batman, but I think mostly I'm thinking of the Dark Knight trilogy, right?
Yeah, I just think like sick, badass movies. And
That's fair.
They're rumored to, but I think they're tied to Warner Brothers.
Well, are they not tied to?
They did a lot of Christopher Nolan movies.
I was thinking, I'm like, are they not just tied to
Interstellar?
Yeah, exactly, to Nolan.
Even some of the Snyder movies, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like they're trying to get a paycheck from a different studio.
I think they're a little bit more free, and so is A24. By the way, they're also free. They're their own production company and studio, and they do all their own stuff. So it's like I think that kind of freedom is pretty cool today, where everything's either owned by Disney or Warner Brothers or one of the two. Sony's making a Days Gone movie because the game didn't work,
After
so maybe this
a sequel.
Yeah, to the game. That's right.
And then
what a kick in the balls!
Those creatives over.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to talk about creatives,
I do. That is. I mean, it's like, okay, fine. The game didn't succeed. We're gonna move on. Fair enough.
Sure
Not every game works.
It sold very well, apparently, though. That's the thing. It did succeed.
I did. I mean, I guess. I think
it sold like extremely well, but then there was like, what was that samurai game that came out?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, that one, like, out of everyone's shock, like sold like an insane amount.
Right. There's also a movie of that coming.
Yeah, and a sequel to that game.
Yes.
So they're like, well, why isn't there a Days Gone sequel if it sold a certain number that was close to that?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, to be fair, I mean, I feel like I was making fun of that game when it was coming out, just being like, it's zombies, but no, they're freakers or whatever.
Well,
it's
the
like, yeah,
drama
it's
behind
like,
that was that they rushed that game because in the gaming culture, it was the whole crunch gate,
right,
about with like CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, and Days Gone, they kind of released the game a little not ready. Obviously, they had day one patches and stuff, but it wasn't enough. And the reviews of that on reputable sites like IGN,
Right.
Games, GameStop or whatever, GameSpot, they they gave it like 4s out of 10s and stuff. Like
Right.
they
Yeah.
ruined the game
That
upon
sucks.
release.
That sucks.
Even if the game, that score reflected the game at the time, because it, like we just I
Yeah.
said right before that,
Well,
was
what
that
do
it
you
wasn't
like?
ready.
I've been playing
Yeah,
a lot of Battlefield 2042, and yeah, and
that
that
game
game
wasn't ready. Kevin
was
Hart, I
not
wasn't
ready.
ready.
It's not ready. It was not. It wasn't even close to ready. It's laughable how bad of a state it was in.
Mhm.
But I'm playing a lot of it lately. It's much better
But
shape now.
nothing will ever compare to CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk.
Oh my God,
I
no,
mean, the game was
nothing that
pulled from the PS4 stores, I
from the
believe, right?
store because
PSN.
they was so bad.
Yeah,
I
you couldn't buy
I
it
would
anymore.
I own a copy of that game, and I'm so upset with myself.
So that's a little tease of what we've discussed in the video game world for
Yes,
fans out there who
yes. We
who
haven't
never
done one
heard
of
us
those.
talk
We haven't
about
done,
that stuff.
a games episode in a long time. We have to jump back into that in a
Things
second.
change.
So King Kong, they're getting a Disney Plus series from James Wan's production company. Godzilla versus Kong, or another Godzilla and Kong movie's coming. So King Kong's live and well. If anyone's concerned that the giant ape is not getting his due. Over on TV, Jeffrey Dean Morgan has been cast in The Boys season 4. Pause for applause. Holding for applause. Great.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Right?
I don't know enough about Jeffrey Dean Morgan to have a
Well,
really strong
I guess
stance.
if you're a Walking Dead fan, because he played Negan,
Yes.
that was like a huge
Yes.
thing. But before that, he was a comedian in Watchmen, which was super cool.
That's
And
obviously true.
Then he popped up in Justice League as Thomas Wayne, and we had a fun conversation before where
Jeremy, I'll
just-
cut that up and release some of that. That was a fun
But
conversation.
that was all that was about. Was it what just this opportunity, just right in front of us. We really had it all there with a potential Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman and Jeffrey Dean Morgan in that role, suited up. But we'll never see the light of day.
Yeah. Anyway, it's cool. I don't know who he's gonna be playing in The Boys season 4, but The Boys is one of the best shows on television.
Always delivers.
So yeah, I'm stoked to see it. Let's see here. Disney passes Netflix in subscribers. Not necessarily surprising. Pretty cool though. Okay, so here's what we've been watching. It's been a combination of things. I'll touch on a couple of things quickly. We'll dive into a couple of things in a little bit more depth. Only Murders in the Building season 2 finale just aired the week before last, I believe. It is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, but that's caveated with the fact that you have to be in for the shtick, right? So it is, and by the way, it is about a podcast, which obviously is close to my heart. But if you don't like the Steve Martin Short shtick, you're not going to like the show. But it is them doing their best work, in my opinion. Like, I love Martin Short. I love Steve Martin. Like, Steve Martin might be one of the funniest people alive. Like, he is just effortlessly funny in the show. And the best part about it is it feels like they're just hanging out. It's this like, just, this is what Steve Martin is probably like most of the time. And it's just hilariously funny. Constantly. Like, just every other line of dialogue is this like joke where I'm like, 1, 2, oh shit, that's really good. Like, it's not like this obvious like punchlines and there's some of that, but it's like this really thoughtful. Sometimes like they're doing their visual gag stuff, which is also very funny to me. But it's like traditional old school comedy. It's a little slower. It's a little bit more dry, but to me, it's like catnip. I love it. There's a 3rd season coming, and it's I can't wait. I like the one thing that really sucks about it is that Steve Martin has said that it's likely to be the last thing he does. Like, he's like, I'll probably be done acting after Only Murders in the Building. And it's like, that sucks. But if you're going to go out, I'd say go out on top, because this show is chef's kiss. So good. Like, one of the best shows. every time I watch it, I'm like, I can't believe how good this show is. So that's Only Murders in the Building season 2. Look for Paul Rudd to appear in season 3 in a larger role. So if you're a Paul Rudd fan, maybe that'll get you in the door. Okay. I also watched Sandman. Jeremy, have you seen any of Sandman on
I'm
Netflix?
not.
So I was just harping on Netflix for being not the best, but Netflix Sandman is something that they've been working on for a long time. It's based on a Neil Gaiman graphic novel. One of arguably, I think it's one of the New York Times all-time bestsellers. It's up there with Watchmen as being one of the greatest graphic novels of all time. And this adaptation, largely considered to be unadaptable, right? Netflix said, we can do it. They spent a lot of money on it. It was their,
They said,
their
"Hold my
big show.
beer."
Yeah, and honestly, guys, they fucking nailed it. It is so good. The first episode is slow. I really had a hard time. I almost didn't make it past the first episode. I watched the first episode. I was like, I don't know about this show. Then I had someone be like, no, I don't think you should continue. It's kind of stupid. And then I was like, I heard enough other good things from other parts of Twitter and podcasts and stuff. I was like, okay, I got to give this show a shot. And stuff they do, some of these single episodes where they just handled it like a single concept. There's this one episode that's a bottle episode. It all takes place in like a diner. The twists, the turns, the like mind-bending concepts that they're using, the performances, it's extremely entertaining, very confusing at times, I would argue, sure, but I think they do a very good job of taking these extremely high concept ideas and visualizing them in a way that makes them approachable, largely speaking. It's a lot of high concept gobbledygook, right? About, the Dream Lord and the Dream Plane and how that feels. But it's like it all is sewn together in this really neat tapestry. And you genuinely care about these characters and there's this kind of layer of levity to most of what's going on. Gets pretty dark, but it keeps things pretty light overall, and I loved it. I really just crushed the back half of that season, this first season, and I don't know if they'll do more because I have to imagine it's super expensive, and I hope people watch it because it is very good. And I really would like people to dive into it more so I can maybe talk about it more. But wow, I was floored by how good it is. Up there with my favorite shows of the year so far. It's been a killer year for shows between Only Murders in the Building, Sandman, The Bear. Now we're gonna get Lord of the Rings right away, and we're gonna get The Boys was just super good, and like, man, it's crazy. But this stuff, Sandman, up there with some of the best. Any questions about Sandman?
No.
Okay. Moving on. She-Hulk. Jeremy, you've seen the first 2 episodes. I've seen the first 2 episodes. What did you think?
I thought it was great.
It's so good, right? I think Tatiana Maslany, shout out, Canadian from Saskatchewan. So good. Absolute, like, by the way, both Miss Marvel and She-Hulk are both Canadian now, by the way. Shout out to the Canadian actors and actresses out there. I just think it's like very impressive how effortless she makes her performance as She-Hulk look, and whether she's in She-Hulk or in her human form, regardless, I just think, and sure, the CG not maybe the best, but like good enough in my opinion. Like, Jeremy, what did you think about the CG, just generally speaking?
I thought it was good. I thought in moments it was pretty sweet. I think we're discrediting like what Mark Ruffalo's Hulk looks like the entire time. Like he's
Right.
Hulk form the entire time, and it doesn't look that discernible from like the movies.
Well, yeah, Hulk. But they also have all that movie stuff that they can borrow from. She-Hulk is net new,
and
right?
I just love the. They just nailed the look of the Hulk with how they superimpose the like human form with the Hulk form.
Right.
Because I think we're just so used to like the old school stuff where it's just like
green
an actor
monster.
plays Bruce Banner and then he's just this monster.
Yeah.
So that just kind of reinforced that whole take that they're doing is super cool to me. And I was just so enamored. Like we had this whole episode where we'd have two Hulks
Yeah.
just going at it and talking
Yeah.
and figuring things out. Like this is awesome. This is like
Well, I
go
think
ahead.
that they do this brilliant job of really turning down the level of seriousness for the
Turning down
show.
the suck.
Well, turn down the suck, turn up the awesome. But like we're so used to the MCU being sometimes, obviously full of jokes, right? But the world's always at stake, and something really is important is happening, and oh no, Wanda's evil now. It's like stuff like this where in She-Hulk, it's so much more light and breezy, right?
Yeah, it's just
Um,
like easy humor.
yeah,
Like the one that sticks out to me is when the guy at the new office gives them a map and he says that's a
yes,
map for the bathroom for poop.
yeah, for pooping. The way he said
Yeah,
it, by the way, too, is so good.
I
Shout
think he
out,
just said for poop or something. But like I
right?
just thought that was so funny and it doesn't need to be connected to Marvel or like have
Yep.
any
No, just a
Easter
good
egg in
joke.
it. Just a little funny joke. Let's move on.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, it just constantly. I think. By the way, there's another joke in that second episode where, her new boss, who's just like this, like, stereotypical like lawyer boss character, right? He's like, send Michaels to send Michaels to Minnesota because he hates the cold. Just tell him that. Just and I just like the idea that he's just clearly like the worst boss ever.
Yeah.
But she has to kind of put up with it. And like the concept of a superhuman law division and having She-Hulk attorney at law not just be like a fun catchphrase, but like actually be what the show is, and like dealing with. I love, by the way, her like little interview with Blonsky with the Abomination.
Second episode.
Right, in the second episode where it's like she's like, wait a minute, the government gave you that? Like she's like, wait a minute, you actually have there's actually something here, and there's something to explore there. You can you don't have to necessarily get down into the nitty gritty, but they can if they want to, and they can be light and fluffy where they need to be. I did think the first episode is a little bit more clunky because apparently that stuff was set for episode 8, and then they pulled it to
Man,
forward to
I
episode 1.
disagree. I think the first episode is so tight and so good.
I don't know. The ending
And
is
you're
not
just
tight.
with Hulks the whole. Well, the ending's awesome because they do the thing with the breaking the fourth wall, which is cool
Right.
because it's part of her character. Uh, you can really tell like Feige just loves this character and is just really wants to nail this. I think
Yeah.
this might be the best TV show for Marvel in some time.
You haven't
I
seen
think
Loki. Go see Loki.
yeah, I haven't seen Loki, but I think the heights of WandaVision, like with the Loki
Mm-hmm.
drama, was really cool and made you really feel like you were tapped into the MCU.
Yep.
In this show, I felt like I was tapped into the MCU the entire time. I was so excited to see what was around the corner.
Right.
And with the ending, when she says it's lawyer show, it's like, oh yeah, this is a lawyer
Yeah.
show. But
Right.
we've been getting Hulk this entire time, and it was freaking awesome. And
Yeah.
then in that moment where it feels like it's going to revert to a typical show where we have to just show the actors because the CG budget isn't always going to be there, it turns into She-Hulk immediately, and it has this amazing ending with that song and like how
And
she wants
yeah.
to finish her closing arguments. I thought it was just a
Titania.
perfect
Right.
sales pitch, one-off She-Hulk movie that is just exceptional, especially with the acting.
I think if they had released episodes 1 and 2 together, I think that would have been a perfect like little 1-2 punch.
Sure. But
But
also,
yeah.
it was Feige who said that whatever number episode mid-season
8
needs to come first because we would have gotten that lawyer show just Tatiana as human form She-Hulk probably for a bit, and I just love how we just went right into it. Like I just
Yeah.
really felt like I was in the MCU, learning of this character that makes sense that she exists, that has a relationship with Bruce Banner,
Right.
that you can just tell that more Hulk stuff is coming down the line.
Well, I
If
love.
you aren't a fan of Smart Hulk,
Yeah.
don't fret. We're gonna get back
Right,
to that
exactly.
other stuff, and it's gonna make this stuff even more exciting. Because the other stuff is just it's mindless fun.
Right.
And I just think Mark Ruffalo is so funny with some of it with some of his stuff here.
You're not ready. You're obviously not ready for.
There's the one divisive moment on Twitter where She-Hulk talks about how she's better at controlling her anger than
Yes.
Bruce, and
Is it
it's
divisive? I thought people were
inflamed.
mostly
Well, it's
excited
just
about that.
inflaming everybody. It's like
Right.
it's these guys are becoming insecure over the fact, and they're trying to compare. Like it's just bullshit. It's
Yeah.
wokeness. Even Ben Shapiro is saying that this new Marvel show is pure trash wokeness because of this one moment.
That's
Um,
bullshit. That's
it
I
is.
just
I
can't. That
think it's
is
just
such
whatever.
bullshit.
It's not putting this whole like
I thought it was.
you
I thought
know
it felt so natural as part of the episode. Like I didn't even blink when she said.
yeah.
Like, of course, that makes
I
perfect
think
sense.
I knew what it was and I knew what it kind of would do. I didn't think it'd go that crazy with people, and they're just kind of smeared by the whole thing with that one moment to where it ruins the entire experience.
Right.
I feel sorry
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Me
that,
too.
to
It's
be
like that
honest,
sucks. There's a lot of other good shit there you
because
missed.
I think Feige is just
Yeah.
nailing this. I think you can really tell that this is one of his favorite characters, and he's incorporating everything, the lawyer
What's
aspect, the breaking the fourth wall.
Yep.
Um, it's
The
just it's
all the
unbelievable.
cameos. Like we're gonna
Yeah,
get. It's
we're
gonna be
getting
cameo.
more
Cameo. Daredevil's
Daredevil.
gonna be in there. Oof.
Real,
You know,
it's
like
really something special here, man. Like like I've been real down on the Disney Plus stuff.
yeah.
Uh,
Yes, you have.
I have specifically Captain or sorry, Falcon and
Man,
Winter Soldier,
the
which
second
will be
show
Captain
ever,
America.
it totally
Yeah.
it just turned you off so hard. You
Well, even
couldn't.
WandaVision
It
turned a
took you
lot of
like a
people off
year to
because
get
those
back
first
in.
three episodes, right? They
Yeah.
tried to just kind of be silly with their first three episodes and not dive into what was going
Yeah.
on. And it worked with some and didn't work with others. But I never want to talk about WandaVision again. But I guess it always just kind of comes up. But I do
Well, it's
appreciate
because it
the
was the first one. It's gonna
yeah.
come up. Yeah. It's
But I
gonna.
do really, I think they were just Vision was just killing it in that show
Oh,
and what they were
Paul
doing with
Bettany,
him,
Jeremy,
just
underrated. Talk about underrated.
killing it. So, but this one, I just feels it just fits so smoothly into the MCU. It makes me excited to see Hulk stuff. It
Mm-hmm.
makes me excited to see her come across other characters. It's awesome that we live in a world where this character that Stan Lee created in 1980
Yeah.
that's a derivative of Hulk essentially, but not really. It's its own
Well, apparently
character.
they what I love about this her little the side story about her origin is that she was originally created because of licensing. Someone got word that they were gonna do a She-Hulk spin-off TV show
Sure.
from the Lou Ferrigno show, and they're like, oh no, we have to do something about that. So they quickly slapped together the whole She-Hulk attorney at law idea,
Yeah.
and that's where this all comes from. And it's like, what a fun concept, because that predates, like when we think about like licensing characters, that's
Yeah.
like we're talking about Sony and we're talking about Spider-Man and
But it
all this
is
stuff. It's like
Stan Lee
this predates
too.
all that stuff. It's so
It
cool.
is Stan Lee
Yeah.
that long ago, and it just adds to his character and his foresight and his uh just ability to just
Tap
not
into like zeitgeist and
yeah, and
understand.
just be free and open heart and just like all that stuff. Like it's just I don't know. I think it's awesome that this character is coming to fruition and is easily fitting into the MCU
Well, you know, Jeremy,
and will have a major part.
we used to talk about the CW all the time, feeling like a weekly dose of comic book, like a little. This is like
Right.
a single issue, you know. This
Yeah,
feels a lot like that to me,
but
in
not
that way.
cheap. Not cheap.
Not
And we
cheap,
know that it's
no.
not going to be 20 episodes. And we know we're going to get major characters that pop up that we've
Yes.
seen before. And they're all
Well,
getting their own show.
and it all feels natural for her if she's like, okay, well, it's like, okay, yeah, her first client is Abomination. It's like that makes sense because of her connection to Bruce and all that kind of stuff. But like Daredevil's going to get involved, and that's cool because he's also a lawyer. But who knows what other stuff might happen? But it all feels natural. It all fits because of her job, and because of the tone of the show. It lets them be more loose and really kind of, be a little bit maybe too meta at times. It's like that joke about like what does Hawkeye do with his arrows? Like, does he go around picking them up? That didn't necessarily
Hawkeye
land for
already
me.
did that joke in his
Exactly.
show, too.
So it's like, but there is other stuff like the Captain America's virginity joke. That is good. That is funny. to
Yeah,
me.
and that's a post-credit thing, but it kind of like started in. Was it all post-credits or was there?
No,
There
it
was a
started in
brief moment
there is a
before.
brief moment
And
in the earlier. Yeah.
her delivery of the dialogue, I think at the
Yes.
end,
Yes.
like when she says that ass, where she's kind of like crying, like where she's sad, is so good. And then the payoff of her just exuding the excitement that he wasn't a virgin, and they cut it off with the swear word. It's brilliant stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not a fan of a lot of the humor they try to pull off in Marvel movies as of late.
Right.
But this is just holy cow, man. This is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah,
And
it's
it ties
good.
to a prior joke in Endgame where they bring up his ass.
America's
How
ass.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, it's just funny because it's like Chris Evans, Captain
Chris
America. Like, what are we
oh,
talking about his
yeah.
ass for?
It's so good.
But it was just whatever. It was funny, and now
Yeah.
we get a second coming of it, and it's even funnier.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. What is funny to me, well, and not funny necessarily. What's exciting to me is that we had heard about Tatiana Maslany as being this amazing actress because of her work on Orphan Black, a show that I will never watch. And like there's actually there's like a spin-off show coming, and everyone's like, man, Tatiana Maslany, she's great. She needs to be cast. And then she never really got her shot. And now this is going to springboard her because her, again, effortless. Her performance is effortless. And I think that is like the sign of like a true great.
The Hulk chemistry.
Yeah, it's great.
The showcasing of her origin, of her power. She can stand toe to toe. It's just,
yeah.
It's so, and then the dynamic with the smart Hulk, and she's already smart She-Hulk essentially, which is so curious to Hulk and the humor that plays out.
I love.
And then him leaving, and we know that they're gonna do
World War Hulk
justice someday because I think the rights to like solo movies reverts back in 2024 or something like that.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I think
for Universal.
that was one of the reasons why they weren't really doing much with them, other than the fact that they wanted to. They kind of categorized the Incredible Hulk as a failure, but now people have the revisionist history.
Yeah.
Where, like,
by the way, did you like that reference to like in the second movie? He's like, I'm literally a different guy.
Hilarious.
Right? You thought that was good?
That's the type of Deadpool, She-Hulk, fourth wall breaking, meta, multiverse,
because it can be interpreted as being
either
like,
way.
oh, I'm Smart Hulk now.
Yes,
right? Exactly.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, which I like.
Mark Ruffalo, his comedic delivery is super.
It's pretty crazy that we have one of the best actors playing the Hulk in the MCU. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Okay. I will mention one more thing about She-Hulk, which is that, you know, this concept that the Hulk has multiple personalities, whereas She-Hulk doesn't. Not something that the MCU really has explored, but listening to people talk about the show, and they're talking about how really that concept comes from like a pretty dark origin story for Bruce Banner and how he was abused as a kid and all this other stuff. And it's like they might deal with that, and that's pretty cool to me. I didn't really consider that. It was just like, oh, the Hulk is just two different personalities. Always has been that way. And then they're like, but what if it hasn't? What if that's not the way? You know, I like that concept. She's like, no, what do you mean? I'm just one person. I'm the Hulk, or I'm not the Hulk, right? I think that's brilliant. So
exciting. And then on top of that too, when I feel how the show is so tight, it's the beginning credits, but also the end credits. We get this amazing animated visual feast, like of
recapping the episode,
goodness.
Basically.
Yeah, that looks like a comic book, and it makes me want to like read those comics in the 80s or that run where they did make her the lawyer and the breaking the fourth wall. It's like, man, how fun,
the Dan
and
Slott
inventive,
run.
and cool were those comics back in the day prior to the internet.
Oh, exactly. It's like they were so ahead of their time. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Miss Marvel also had really cool Miss Marvel
I haven't watched
really
that one
cool,
yet, so that's why I can't.
Had really cool post credits. I thought it was, and actually their intro thing where they like did different artwork and stuff. It's cool. So anyway, trust me on that one. Okay, a couple more things. Green Lantern, Beware My Power. So typically we're pretty like on the ball about these DC animated movies. I am a little concerned about their future with the Warner Brothers Discovery stuff, but
I have concerns.
But we'll get to that. This is a new Green Lantern movie. It's done in the new style that the last two or last handful of animated DC movies have been. A little bit blockier in design, a little thicker lines. Yeah. And I think that works well for Green Lantern as a concept. I think this movie looks pretty good, but it is a mess, Jeremy. Holy crap.
It is a slog.
It's just I'm like, it's crazy how many like massive Green Lantern storylines they just barrel through as quickly as they possibly can in this movie. I'm surprised they didn't do Blackest Night in the middle of this movie in a 10-minute sequence, because they do almost every other
There's just
major
so many characters, right? Like, isn't
Well, you would
Hawkman in
think
this movie?
they actually, but they no, there is a bazillion characters. Yes, this is true. I will just, but that's not even its biggest issue. It's that they murder, they kill off all of the, they like show the dead bodies of all of the Green Lanterns that you might recognize, and that's fine if you're wanting to like start fresh with the Green Lantern thing. Because I was like, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, and spoilers for this movie, Jeremy. Like, I don't know how much you want me to reveal, but for those who might not want to be spoiled here, they do the and they tried to honor some of the really cool Green Lantern stuff, where you have Hal Jordan with all the rings and the parallax stuff, but it's handled so quickly that it doesn't really have the weight that it should, and you're not introduced to any of these other Green Lanterns. You get pulled into this movie, fish out of water style with Jeremy, who's our favorite Green Lantern. This one is about John Stewart. Yeah. So John Stewart, you start with John Stewart, and I think it starts off really strong with John Stewart like on the battlefield in
so I have the Blu-ray of this movie, and I tend to watch the special features first, because when these animated movies were coming out initially, they had a lot of really cool and interesting special features and bonus cartoon episodes,
and they've gotten probably not as good over
worse and worse and worse. They do still collect the episodes. I don't think they really name it like Bruce Timm's Picks anymore, but it is episodes from the 90s cartoons, the DC animated universe, the Timverse, if you will, that correlate to the subject matter of the movie or the character. So there's probably like the Blackest Night storylines from the JLA show, but the one unique new special feature was this John Stewart kind of piece where they just talked about the character and his legacy, and it's probably like 25 minutes, which was really cool. But then you hear the reviews, and it's like, I don't know if that really comes across.
They did not do him justice. I think what's clear to me from this movie is that John Stewart is my favorite Green Lantern. So that comes through. We've been spending years and years and years with Hal Jordan, and this movie certainly handles Hal Jordan, I don't think, in the best possible way. It's unfortunate. And though he is voiced by Uncharted, what's his name, Nolan North, which I think he also voiced him in some of the other older animated movies. But they just don't handle the nuances with enough respect. They don't spend the time getting into why he's such a good Green Lantern, right? And his like, what I do really like is how he, like, throughout the movie, his constructs become more complicated and more intricate throughout the film. I think that's really cool, right? They don't really get into why that would be, right? And kind of like how his specific brain makes that stuff work, right? They just kind of like just throw him into the action, and I just don't think it just doesn't do him justice. I think that I think they're right to give him his own movie. I just don't think that they needed to make it this story, which is, again, like, 4 major, like, they kill off characters like they're just going out of style. Like, these are major Green Lantern characters, and they just don't care. Some of the characters you might recognize don't even get dialogue. And it's like, this is wild to me. Like, Hawkgirl is very cool in it. Like, it's clear that they're, like, aiming for this kind of, like, JLA dynamic, because they had this romantic connection in the old Justice League cartoon. But, all that stuff is handled clunkily as well. I do think it looks great. Again, I think it does look really good. The use of animation for Green Lantern is really its saving grace, because it allows you to do all these creative things with constructs in a way that doesn't look cheesy like it does in live action, or has, in that one example that we have. But for my money, it's just a shame, because it is an absolute mess. It is a mess that I largely enjoy. I did have fun watching the movie, because I got to, like, be like, oh, like, this is them doing this storyline, or this is them doing this storyline. But it quickly became like, there's too many. Please stop. and I think it relies on people having a little bit of backstory on to some of these great Green Lantern stories, because if you didn't have any of that context, it really helped me to understand the context of, Hal Jordan's story and how he ends up as the Parallax and all that kind of stuff for this movie to work. But I think if the way that the movie introduces it on its own is confusing, it's way too fast, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No,
So
Hal Jordan Parallax cannot be introduced until midway.
yeah, it has to be
through his
paid off over
adventures.
multiple movies. Yeah, exactly. And this is just it. Sure, he's actually had multiple movies before, and if you kind of try to like fit this into that timeline, it could pay off, maybe. But it doesn't. It doesn't really work that way. Yeah. It's a shame, in my opinion. I think
the
if you're
rumors
gonna
are with the movie, they might even be kind of taking that approach and taking it a bit slower and like really getting to know the characters. Which if they do a Hal Jordan and a Jon Stewart together, or
right,
maybe they might even just focus on Hal Jordan because they want to kind of take everything back to its roots with the characters, specifically with the Trinity. But they don't want to just okay, he gets the ring right away and now we're off. They might want to just kind of focus on that character, kind of like Tony Stark and Iron Man, right? Like, he wasn't necessarily, he was always Iron Man, but he wasn't like suited.
He wasn't
up.
Iron Man until the third act. Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think they're going to try to find that formula, and that's super exciting to me.
I think if you're going to do Green Lantern in live action again, I think you're better off using Jon Stewart. I honestly believe that, and I think it works better if you start off with Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan was already a part of the world, and we can recap his story. We can go back to it. I just don't think we need to rehash the Hal Jordan story again right now. That's my opinion. It also adds diversity in a kind of in a way that I think people will like, because it brings them back to their Justice League animated roots.
Well, it's a real character that's
you
know what I mean. It's not a diverse character for
right, and it's not it's not exactly it's not just colorblind casting. It's just like, no, this is a real character who has his own backstory. It's very interesting. Like there's a part where he makes a construct of a gun, and because he's a former soldier, and it's like, that's so cool, but you just never Hal Jordan's always just like giant hammers, big, like it's like a big drill or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's always stuff like that.
The thing between the four corpsmen, right, is to differentiate them and to show their willpower and how it comes through the ring. Their constructs are different. And Jon Stewart's always been cool because he was an architect and he was in the military. So I think it was Ethan Van Sciver, maybe even Ivan Reis.
Right.
Their artistry kind of really showcased that difference, and they made like blueprint looking like constructs, which I always thought made sense for a Green Lantern.
This, by the way, don't even address the fact that he's an architect. That's not even talked about in this movie. It's just I mean, to me, it's
they play off the fact that Hal Jordan was always the simple stuff, the hammers, the fists,
right?
And they use that with Kyle Rayner, who is an artist before he gets the
little paintbrush. I love that
in the back lane, and he does very inventive constructs, which is like the next level of constructs. And then Guy Gardner, I think, is just probably similar to Hal.
Yeah, probably to his character's detriment, because he often gets the back seat to, if they're going to do as a Green Lantern, it's of that ilk, it's going to be Hal and not Guy. Anyway, I saw Bullet Train. I think I briefly mentioned that on our film club. Very fun movie, very much in the ilk of
You said
Guy Ritchie.
Bad Bunny was the best part of the movie.
I didn't say that. I didn't. Please, to be clear, I didn't say that. He's fine in the movie. I think
Did you know who Bad Bunny was before this movie?
Yeah, because I remember hearing about his stupid Marvel movie Sony wanted him.
I think it was DC.
No way, it was Sony. Sony wanted him to do a Spider-Man villain character.
Oh, okay.
And from as far as I'm concerned, he's fine. He does not need his own. He does not need his own movie, especially one for the character that no one's ever heard of.
Fine from Julian. That's not.
Yeah, that's a salty fine.
People.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Brad Pitt's doing a fun work here. For my money, Aaron Taylor Johnson is the true the true winner here, because unrecognizable in my opinion. So cool.
Kraven the Hunter.
Well, hey, you know what, Jeremy? I went from being really down on the idea of him being Craven to being very excited for him being Craven.
One of the military guys in Tenant.
That we all remember his name.
The sick haircut.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a really fun popcorn movie. It's kind of one of those things where it's like they'll lay out all the pieces, then they'll shuffle them all up, and then at the end it'll all come back together in a really satisfying, action-y way, very stylized. Again, Guy Ritchie inspired. Very, very fun. I love Guy Ritchie movies. It makes me want to watch Lock, Stock, or Snatch or something like that. Okay. House of the Dragon, Hot D, as they call it. Premiered 10 million viewers in the U.S., renewed for season 2. It is very good. It takes me back to what makes Game of Thrones... What made Game of Thrones... exactly. That, I mean, literally using the same theme music, which is fine because it's the best... It's, Ramin Djawadi made one of the best theme songs of all time, so it's really hard to beat that. It brings you instantly back in the world. I will say, despite the first episode not having a opening credits sequence, the second episode does, and it sucks in comparison to the Game of Thrones opening credits sequence, despite using the same song. So that's one thing. It's confusing. It does not add any additional clarity at all.
It doesn't have King's Landing.
It doesn't have King's Landing. It doesn't. It's not a map. It's not even a map. That's the worst part. Yeah. So anyway, it's apparently it's the Targaryen bloodline broken down, but like not clearly in any not in any clear way.
I will
in my
say
opinion.
that last trailer was off the chain.
Jeremy, there is so many dragons. There's so many Caraxes, Jeremy, is one of them. What a cool name for a dragon. Anyway, I think it's off to a stellar start because it's gotten back to the core of what makes Game of Thrones work. It's nuanced characters making difficult decisions and having interesting conversations, and that's really all it is. The action is although there is some really cool action in the first episode, reminds me of Green Knight stuff. Sorry, not Green Knight. The Last Duel type stuff. Oh, Jeremy, did I lose you? Hello?
Hello?
Jeremy? Oh, you hear it still there?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Me?
Yeah, I have to refresh the page apparently.
Huge.
Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I think we recorded too long. I think is what happened. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, it just comes back. It just gets back to the roots of what makes Game of Thrones work. It reminds me the action that I was talking about. Reminds me of The Last Duel. They have this tournament in episode 1. It's very brutal. There's an extremely violent scene, very gory scene in the first episode. That's the other thing. It feels expensive. I love how expensive this show feels, Jeremy. It feels like they spent. Yes, I know. It sounds so stupid, but it makes the world like you can tell they spent time and thought about details that are expensive, right? Warner Brothers Discovery probably hates how expensive the show costs.
They put their money where their mouth was.
It looks so good, and it makes the world feel real, and that's ultimately what that money's there for. So I despite the sadness of not being able to cover the show on a week-to-week basis, there's some really, the other thing is I've been listening to some weekly recap podcasts of that show, and they're doing a much better job than I ever could. We'll just put it that way. So I can make recommendations. Come to me on Twitter at Tower Babblecast on Twitter. I can make recommendations about some good recap podcasts for Game of Thrones. Hot D. Jeremy, I recommend you get into it. It's you don't want to get too far behind. You want to be a part of the buzz around this one. Like I said, we've already seen dragons. It's only episode 2, and there's going to be a lot more. The dragons are the least interesting part, I would argue, of the show. It's these really amazing performances and great dynamics, and yeah, it's what makes Game of Thrones. These writers were smart enough to they understood the assignment, Jeremy. They understood the assignment. And then last but not least, I do want to just spend a couple seconds talking about Prey, a movie that I think is better than the original. I thought about it for a while. I saw a tweet that said this movie's better than the
That's all
original.
that matters. Is just saying that it's better than the original. Eh?
I want again. I'm trying to be quick, but in my opinion, yes, I do think it's better than the original. I don't know, Jeremy. You've seen it. What do you think?
I would say it's not better than the original. I'll say
Interesting.
that to begin with. I think it captures the spirit of Predator and elevates it in ways that no one has done before. It
Yeah.
continues the tradition of what that movie set, and just really embellishes it, and it's super fun to see it play out that way.
Oh, it's so good.
Uh, so yeah, with that being said, I think it's just one of those things where it's a spiritual successor, not necessarily a reboot
Well, it's a
or
prequel
all
in
the
the
yeah,
in
it's
the truest sense, right? You
right.
know.
Um, and I just don't think it nails that kind of epic third act that the original has.
Yeah, but the
That
second act
knowing that
peak is.
knowing the that knowing the entire team
Mm-hmm.
and their characters, much like Aliens, how James Cameron
Right.
introduces all those
Right.
characters.
Right.
I think Predator does that like really well, and then they're just off one by one in a very
Memorable
like
ways. Yeah.
very memorable ways, patiently, methodically. The dynamic is changing slowly with it. So with Prey, it's kind of like a real quick turn to that, but like kind of a
Well,
side
yeah.
mission first, and then it just kind of happens. But I love how they elaborate on the mythology.
Yes.
I think the
Totally.
practical effects are really cool, enhanced with CG, but a lot of CG is not quite up to snuff
I
for a
suppose.
theater type movie, which this was made for
I
streaming.
oh Jeremy, I wanted to
Um,
see this movie in theaters so bad. It's a shame.
yeah,
Apparently, it's all about like rights again, streaming rights and all that kind of bullshit.
right.
Which is why it can't go to theaters. But it's such a shame because this movie, and this is part of the reason, by the way, maybe why people are upset with critics and they get mad at them. But most critics got to see this in a theater.
Mhm.
And they talk about how great it looked, and it's like, man, that's bullshit. Because
Yeah,
literally, no one else gets to have that experience. So, congratulations, I guess. But I think it's by far the best looking Predator movie.
hundred
I mean,
percent. Dan
it's not even
Trachtenberg
close.
just really went all in with the cinematography and the long shots, the
Mm-hmm.
setting, the space, and all that stuff.
The
I
way
just
it's lit
harken
at
back
night
to
is so
the
cool.
yeah. My TV doesn't showcase it as well, and I was talking to someone else who also
Right.
has an OLED like
OLED.
yourself, and they
Yeah.
said it wasn't that good as well
Oh,
for some
really
reason.
interesting.
Like they said it was almost too dark. Um,
I don't know. I mean,
but in terms of like
I don't know.
I harken back to the original two, just being just so epic with the setting itself and the feeling of just being in that jungle and that
Sure.
landscape, and just how the predator's kind of around, and it doesn't really get the the kind of leg up on Arnold like that closely that happens in this new Prey
Mm-hmm.
movie. Like
Right.
I guess it is suffering for me a bit of the whole Mary Sue type vibe, where it is this new character that wants to prove herself, which is super cool.
Yeah.
But then it just kind of has like the training montages, which are just a little over the top
I
with
just
like
found them
the
so I found it so endearing. Like watching, like that's why I can't agree with you on the Mary Sue stuff because we watched her go from not being able to handle a a mountain lion essentially, and then her learning to use that axe with the rope, which is super dope, right?
That's not
Um,
dope though. The axe with
it
the rope
is
is not a
cool.
thing.
Yeah, of course it doesn't work in real life, but it's a
It's
movie, Jeremy.
not
It's
a
cool.
thing.
It's cool.
They
So
even one of the characters who is more levels up than her, no
right,
matter what, right? She's just the main character, so you want to believe that she has this huge arc. I think, like I said, I think it's cool that she has this desire to be something other than
right,
what she is supposed to be. That I'm not saying is the Mary Sue element.
right.
I'm saying the actual training with the ropes and the axe is a little too far fetched.
Sure, I guess. I
It
guess.
just is. I think that's like, um, and then um, there's just too many beats that replicate the first movie to say that it is a better movie. Like
Well, I just
the
think they do it.
camouflage with the mud. I think
Sure.
it's a cool reinvention of that, and it's very tense scenario where I think it is a cool part where she can use the axe with the rope because it's just like a grapnel hook that she just like
Right.
has with her. Um, but yeah, the ending with Arnold where he like
Covers himself in mud. Yeah.
ceremoniously like puts on the mud and lights the torch and calls out the predator that has just been wreaking havoc on so many people around them. This movie, I think it's really cool to see the battles. We just get battle after battle after
Right.
battle with
Yeah.
whatever creature. So that in that sense, it enhances the
Oh, Jeremy,
mythology of the
that scene
predator.
with the bear is, I mean, the
Very
bear
cool.
CG is not great,
I,
but
it's not great, but I
it's
love when he's holding the
yeah.
bear up and the blood's falling down on him and
Yes.
she's running away. But it's like in that moment, he could easily just kill her like
Right,
instantaneously.
but to him, she's not a threat, right? Like
Well,
he's
yeah, but they show her not a threat when she's caught by the bear trap or she's
yeah.
injured and all that stuff. And that those scenarios, she's not necessarily injured.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I can see that. But like I guess yeah, that's a contrivance, I suppose. But for me, it totally for me it works. It does
it's
do
thrilling
some
for sure.
shortcuts. I just think that the watching the predator take on the next biggest best predator, apex predator, is cool, right? Culminating with the bear before it all kind of we bring in the other human characters, and I think that by the way, I think every decision that they make is a smart decision. I think that's why I like this movie more than the first one. It just feels like a more tightly made film because it's doing a lot of this. You're right, it's doing a lot of the things that the original movie does, but in my opinion, it's doing them better than the original. And that might just be part of that. Is just like this is a movie made in 2022 with all the hindsight being what it is. For a movie made in the 80s, the original Predator is an amazing movie, and it deserves that credit. But, stripping away the nostalgia goggles for a second, I think it just does those elements better. I think it makes the Predator look more badass. I think it has the main characters themselves feel more... I feel more for them than I do for Arnold and his squad of mercenaries, I like the element of stripping them of their weapons in the sense that we're going to set this in the 1700s and it's going to be, there barely is guns that, we have these French trappers and they have like muskets, and like that's as much as it gets. I think that creates a more interesting dynamic for me. Again, I mentioned, I think it looks better than the original movie. Like it just
yeah, but
shot
it's not.
better.
It's if you with the first movie though, like this one, it's like, oh, these animals are skinned. It's like you're supposed to be like, okay, it's the predator,
Right.
but it's the cat's out of the bag. That was already done in the first movie. They come across camps.
Well,
Of
I know, but
men
that's
hung
why
up upside down skin.
this movie, it upends that. It uses that knowledge. Of
It's
course,
not clever though.
I don't know.
A
I
group
like,
of white like musketeers or whatever, and they're just skinning buffalo.
yeah, but that's
Like it's
true.
who cares?
I
It's
mean,
not.
it's,
It's way
I think
more.
it's a
It's way more
layer.
horror. It's not. It's the first one had more horror to it. This thing was
Yeah,
out there that
this
we
is more of
couldn't
an action
see,
movie. Yes.
and that was part of the special effects, and its camouflage special effect. Um, it was more scary. This one didn't seem scary unless it was like the night scene, or you just knew that the predator was a powerhouse, but he's not the
Sure.
same powerhouse as in the future because he doesn't have lasers anymore. He shoot darts now, but it's like the same thing.
Right. It's
But he
basically
has
the
a
same thing.
laser sight for
Yes.
the darts.
Yes, that's right. That
So
and but
these little things I just don't care for. Oh,
I don't know. For me, it works
why are
because
we
it makes it
talking
more
about this movie
interesting.
as it's better than the first one? You shouldn't be your lead in if you really
You're
truly
right.
believe that. Is my whole takeaway. The
I mean,
first one is too iconic. It's a horror movie at its best.
I
It's a
mean,
human resiliency of coming back and defeating this predator, which is what Predator and Prey is all about.
mhm.
This movie is doing a lot more in terms of the conversation of this character and what she wants to be and how
I just
she's
think it's
being
more
judged.
nuanced than the original movie. I think that's what does it
Mm,
for me. I th- I mean,
I
and
think the
you
original
could
movie is way more simpler though.
well, I mean, the concept was like, here's the thing: you couldn't make the original Predator today in the way that it was made then; it wouldn't work. So this is more
Dude, the
nuanced
third
because the movie
actually
has to
literally
be
says, "Do it." Like, come on, do it. Like
right.
it's exact same
Well, by the
setup
way,
as Arnold has.
it is still a prequel movie, so it has to, it by its nature, it has to do things that the Predator movie did, and that's fine. By the way, the line reading.
Buy the conversation to start with that it's better than the first one. If
Well,
it's
I think that's I
literally
just
beat for beat. It's like you said though. You omitted
Right.
it basically by saying it's a 2022 film
Yeah.
with a young, hungry filmmaker in Dan Trachtenberg, who was influenced by this movie clearly, like we are, and he made a really good Predator movie.
Yeah, the
But
best
to
Predator
say
movie
that
since
it's
the
the
original,
best
at the
one
very least.
is a little bit far.
Well,
I think it does.
listen,
I think it does a lot of things really good, and some things probably maybe best. But as a whole, it's not. It's not.
It sounds to me like your argument is that the first one has to be the best because it established what Predator is, and I think that's fair.
But only because they just do so much of it in terms of dialogue. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Which, by the way,
the setup
they use that again in this movie, and the line delivery of "If it bleeds, we can kill it" is very good in this movie. Like,
is it?
Yeah, I think so. Because I actually did go back and I watched the original "If it bleeds, we can kill it" line, and I think despite Arnold's, maybe not the.
It's so good. I can see right now.
He's fine.
He goes, "If it bleeds, we can kill it," and then it like fade. It does a crossfade, and it's like dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 like that awesome.
Yes, cool music. Yes. But I really
it's like, how is this human gonna beat this?
Right.
This 8-foot tall alien with
I agree with you.
Lasers.
That is, by the way, also the same question that you have for this movie, which is the inherent question, which is fine.
It's just not believable that she defeats him, though. It just isn't.
Well, she
outsmarts
try to
write
him.
it as it is because she has her failure where she can't get the lion, and then the guy trashes her that she's not ready. But then he gives her props that it worked. Your plan, it worked.
Forged through fire. That's this. She's forced to level up because she's pit against the ultimate predator, right? So, to me, all that stuff, it totally works for me. And again, so agree to disagree on that. I just think I actually do prefer the "If it bleeds, you can kill it" line in this movie better. I just think I think the performance is better than Arnold's performance in that one. By the way, the brothers' performance is great.
Isn't the English speaking like a little off though? Like I feel like I would rather watch the original, like the Comanche or whatever language.
That's the other thing. I haven't seen the version in Comanche. It's pretty cool that there is a version in Comanche. For the record, I think that is dope.
I feel like that would have made me enjoy this experience more. I think the English kind of speaking, knowing everything,
it feels a little anachronistic at times, where like. It feels a little too modern in the way they're speaking to each other.
When you say you prefer that line delivery, it's like I can't really get behind that. Like I don't know, like
because it feels too much like someone saying it in 2022 and it doesn't fit the character in the 1700s.
Like, what are you talking about the line delivery?
I mean,
to me,
the thing is, it's like the line delivery is a clear, I mean, it's a clear reference to the original. So in that way, is it able to hold its own? I really liked it because I could feel it coming. It's like he's like, how are we gonna beat this thing? He's like, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And it's like, that's a cool line delivery of that
and then
iconic
on top
line.
of it all too, though, like the whole camouflage technology, it's like you have everything but the lasers.
Well, he also doesn't have the metal mask, right? So I don't know how that works
bone
exactly.
mask?
Yeah, bone mask, yeah. That's pretty cool.
It is cool, but it's also like, okay, that's just, you're doing something to be different, but then it kind of makes sense because if he kills something, he can use their stuff,
right,
and wear it. Like he wears like the little skulls on his belt or something.
Yeah. And by the way, watching him,
like, trust me, I don't hate this movie at all. I just,
we shouldn't argue about this movie. I think this movie is great.
I just didn't expect you to begin with that it's better than the original, and I just think that it's
just spicy. That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. For my money, I just could not believe how good this movie. Especially Jeremy, think about the 2018
It was
movie.
refreshing for sure.
The 2018. Oh, okay. Here comes what's his name back to the franchise to direct this one. It's back to the basics, as it were. And that movie could.
That one? That's crazy,
isn't it? Yeah, it is crazy.
That must be studio meddling because Hawkins from the first movie.
Yes. What's his name? Black something?
Shane Black.
Shane Black.
Director of Iron Man 3, super underrated.
That's right.
Bang, bang. We always have to mention Kisses Bang Bang.
But that movie's... I remember Jeremy, we came out of the movie. I'm sure we reviewed it on this show, and I remember coming out of being like, that might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was
Well, I
so
think I
bad.
really liked the beginning, and then it was like it just turned or something.
Remember, there was that suit. That guy gets that kid gets like a
Yeah.
super suit at the end.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad we got to spend a little bit of time talking about
Predator
Prey.
is back to form. We just have a very capable visionary in Dan Trachtenberg, who again was going to do Uncharted.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Oh, probably would have been better than the one we
I
got.
think he was also going to do Why the Last Man with Shia LaBeouf.
That probably would have been better than the one we got.
To a lot of
Yeah.
He was tied to a lot of like cool IPs, and I think even he did like the Portal mini movie or something.
Was he not attached to? Yeah, he did the Portal short
Commercial
film,
or
and he
something,
did. Was he not at one point attached? No, he wasn't attached to Halo. I don't think at any point. But like
maybe
that
at
was
some point.
that was
But
Spielberg.
he is like known to be attached to like
Yeah.
all those cool things.
Yeah.
And then he's known by the slash film guys.
Yeah,
I
he's
think.
their
Kinda
buddy.
Kind of like how like Ryan Johnson was like some of their buddies too.
Why can't we be best buds with like a famous Hollywood actor or director? Anyway, where does Prey go from here?
Solid as fuck too.
Oh,
like
Jeremy,
I love the original theme song, like for sure. That was in this movie a little bit, but the music in this movie was on another level. Like I gotta download that soundtrack.
Yeah,
I mean the visuals, the landscape visuals and stuff were super cool.
I just love it all feels like thoughtful and cohesive, like in a way that I just haven't seen a genre film of this type be. Nor like what I'm used to now of these types of movies is the member berries, like. Yeah. And there is some of that in here, but it's mostly
it's
not
new enough. For sure. This was a treat. Just knowing that you already had the streaming service. This is a brand new movie.
Yeah, here it comes, 4K,
IP, and it's just on your TV. You can watch for no extra money, essentially.
4K HDR. Yeah. Ooh, buddy, I really enjoyed it. It's for sure gonna make the my top 10 list this year. Where does it go? Is it everyone's saying samurais? I would love to see a samurai Predator movie. How cool would that be? A pirate movie. People suggested a pirate movie because that's where that original gun comes from. The concept, I guess, of now is like, okay, pull the Predator and put him into some sort of cool stylized time period setting. Old West Predator movie, sure. All that stuff sounds great to me now. Like I don't know what a future version of a Predator movie even is at this point.
I don't know. It might even be just like a one-off. It's like, hey, you remember that movie that was really cool that got a bunch of shitty sequels that didn't really get it? Well, we get it, and we have this really cool idea to set it way back in the past with different type of skilled warriors, if you will. Mm-hmm. Take it to the basics, bows and arrows. And it's just really cool. So like, can we do that again in a different era, whether it be samurais or something else? I don't know, man.
Maybe. I'm not like. I think
Predator and Prey. That's it.
Yeah, but like, so it's a basic concept. So if you do that same stuff, but you can add different trappings, like different character dynamics, about family and honor, and all these like, there's all these types of things that you could do around that. That doesn't need to be about like the Predator's home planet or like the Predator. Like the Predator doesn't need to be like a nameless, faceless villain, like an unstoppable force, and that we get to see murder people in cool and creative new ways. That's really like, if that's all those movies are, I think that's successful. Is that not? What more do you want?
But then, how am I supposed to take the new main character who's trying to prove themselves seriously in a new?
Because they're always going to win.
Why would I care?
Right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe one time they lose.
The first one was cool because it's the best of the best that the human species has to offer in a in a commando squad that has all the weapons necessary to defeat anything.
Dylan,
on this
you
planet.
son of a bitch! Yeah.
And lo and behold, an alien comes down and takes them out one by one. But lo and behold, Arnold Schwarzenegger figures it out and comes back and defeats the Predator.
Yeah,
it's done.
So you feel like it starts and ends at the original, and then like we're lucky
this
to even
one is
have
a very
cool,
like influenced, makes sense. You got the nail on the head, and you even included so much of the first one in it.
Yeah, and so references to
Predator 2.
How are you
going to do that again?
Yeah, I don't know.
All I'm saying is that.
I don't think that.
Insane Samurai. Like, okay, it's a GTA video game where we change the city.
Yeah, I guess. Listen, ultimately, it's not up to us. I think that this movie is going to do well enough that it's going to. It's the biggest Hulu opening ever, which is, I feel like, a weird bar. It's like, oh, no one's ever talked about any other Hulu film opening of all time, so whatever. But it's probably done well enough to spur on a sequel, one that'll hopefully go to theaters. That's the other thing. If they make a sequel to this movie, maybe we can see one that looks as good as this, but in a theater, right? So that's what I'm hoping for. At least one more, right? Or like maybe like a Prey trilogy. What do you think?
So the next one we call Prey 2?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, or like Prey 2. Because if you really want to mess it up, if you really want to be a studio meddler, you do something like Prey 2 Predator's Origin or something like that. And that would be super lame, so I hope they don't do that. But I could just see them doing it because they just can't stop themselves.
Alien versus Predator. Oh, wait.
Yeah, right. By the way, I like the first AVP movie. I think it's fun. I think it's a lot of fun. So, say what you will about that. That also may or may not be canon in the Predator universe. So take that for what it's will as well. All right, that's it. Too long. It's already too long. I'm sorry I've kept you up so late. Thank you for everyone for listening. As always, thank you for supporting the show. If you want to help support the show, head over to towerbabblepodcast.com, patreon.com/towerbabblecast, on Twitter @towerbabblecast. Leave us a review on iTunes. I think that's important again. I've been doing research on that. Apple has rejiggered their podcasting stuff. I think reviews are important again. So if you haven't left us a review in a while, leave us a review. Highly would love it. Maybe not on this episode, not our best, but like wait for a good one and then review us. But like I said, we'll be back soonish. We're doing The Rock for the film club. We've got who knows how much more Warner Brothers news to talk about over the next couple of weeks. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with more TOB. And hopefully this 3-hour episode ties you over until then. But we will talk to you soon. Take care.